Hello and welcome to the Soapbox 2021. I'm Sophie Brasher.
And I'm Danny Brett.
We're back after the live reveal on Thursday, and there was also the first Elections Live show yesterday.
Yes, Elections Live happening weekdays from 6 p.m. to catch up on what's happening, because obviously this year everything's 100% digital.
It is. You can follow all the candidates on social media to follow their campaigns. I'm sure that everyone's already received a fair few follow requests.
Yes, and because obviously it's a lot different from last year. Last year happened just before COVID, and here we have a short highlight reel of what happened last year.
Hello and welcome to the live reveal for the Exec Elections 2020.
Yes, so it is the infamous Soapbox, obviously one of the biggest events when it comes to the campaign period. What's going to be happening today then, Sophie?
So we're kicking off first with our action candidate at 3:10, and then we've got our RAG candidate at 4:20, societies at 4:25, and finally, the final section chair for today is enterprise, and that's 5:05. Oh, no.
Yes, so obviously in the hosting seat today is Mr. Josh Gray. He will be grilling the candidates, but to introduce you first to who the candidates are and what sections we're grilling, here is a short clip from us here at LSU Media.
I'm Jodie Evans and I am running to be... I'll do that again.
I like finger guns.
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans and I'm rerunning to be next year's Action Chair.
I'm Seth, I'm running for Society's Chair.
Oh, I'm Nathan and I'm running for the Enterprise Chair.
Okay, so my name's Cameron and I'm running to be the Enterprise Chair.
Hi, I'm Hettie Bawden and I'm running for RAG Section Chair.
I do medicinal pharmaceutical chemistry.
I did my Masters in Pharmaceutical and Medicinal Chemistry.
I've graduated now, but I did do geography.
I am a third-year economics student.
I do computer science.
I have to think there. I am 20, I am 21 in 14 days.
21.
I'm 22.
I am 22 years old.
I'm very offended, but I'm 21.
My favourite thing about Loughborough? Can I say RAG?
I think the amount that you can get involved in, I think that's how we differ. There's so many different ways that you can get involved. There's so many different... even if you haven't done a certain hobby before, you're going to end up doing it when you come here. So definitely, all the stuff you can do here.
My favourite thing about Loughborough is genuinely the people that you meet. I've certainly made some lifelong friends.
It's definitely meeting people who are similar to you, like in terms of interests. So I play badminton, I ride electric skateboards, and I love Enterprise. So it's really awesome to meet people who love the same thing as you.
Is Society's a cop-out answer, or...?
So Loughborough Communities itself is Queen's Park. I absolutely love it there. There is a parrot called Perry who my housemates dance with, and it's really cute just to watch. And then campus-wise, this is going to be quite sad, and because I haven't quite let go. I was a Towers girl, and I just absolutely love Towers as a building. So I think my greatest achievement, again, comes from this year of being action chair. Matt came into my office one day and said, "Okay, we're going to start helping isolated students, and I want you to spearhead it." And with the help of the rest of the team and other people in the building, in 48 hours, we set up a running COVID Community Champions scheme where we got volunteers to help students in isolation, and we've since helped 1,800 students.
One of them, I'd say, is getting into Loughborough University, obviously, big thing. And my other one was a really exciting one that I did many years ago, 2017, and I came second in the Magic Circle's Young Magician of the Year competition.
I would have to say it's the my Year in Enterprise award with my electric skateboard during my placement year. That was great. Yeah.
So I ran in the Exec election last year, and I didn't get ROM'd, which was quite nice, but I also ended up with 200 votes, and I didn't win, which, that is what it is. But at the same time, I've kind of never had that thing of, hey, 200 people each supporting you right now. And even though I lost, it was really heartwarming to know that there were people out there who'd been like, hey, you would do a good job, and it was really nice. That's my greatest achievement.
My greatest achievement was probably I represented England at an international writing competition and won, and it was even more special that I'd just come back from quite a serious injury and been told that I wouldn't be able to row again, so that was incredible to come back from that.
Okay, I'm not a fan when people put on a kind of fake persona. I don't like things like reality TV and that sort of thing. I don't like the fakeness of it all.
Pet peeve is people chewing with their mouth open. It really my spine, horrible.
I'll go simple. When people say loose instead of lose, it really annoys me. It's just one really, and I'm dyslexic, so I should be the one making that mistake.
Currently, it's just washing up on the sideboard. I'm really bad because I go and wash up my washing up as I go along, and then there's people's stuff there, and I get really gritty about it, to almost say it, and...
So, we are going to meet our first candidate today. It is Jodie Evans. She is rerunning to become your action chair, and here is a short clip from her.
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans, and I'm rerunning to be next year's action chair. I absolutely love my job this year. It's probably the best job I'm ever going to have in my life, if I'm honest. And unfortunately, same as a lot of the team this year, COVID got in the way of doing everything I wanted to do. So I would like a second chance to be able to do more with the role. I'm a very personable person, so anyone in my section who has ever had any difficulties or just need a bit of support, then they know they can come to me. As well, when we sit on the exec, we're here to represent you as students.
So Action is the volunteering section of Loughborough Students' Union. That involves all sorts of action projects like going to the alpaca farm, teaching IT to the elderly, the chaperone charity events, all sorts of different volunteering activities. So we've got Chris Nixon here now, just a little clip explaining what Action is and what the candidate will be doing.
The Action Chair leads the volunteering section of the Students' Union. Essentially, the Action Chair oversees the committee in all the 40-something projects that we have within the section. And that's a mix of projects overseas, projects in the local community, projects on campus, lots of different volunteering projects that you can get involved in as a student at Loughborough. My favourite part of Action is meeting new people and going out into the community, and you really see the difference that you make. And people really appreciate it as well when we go out and volunteer, and you can, especially because we usually go out in mass. For example, on the alpaca farm, we go with a busload of people, so we can do in a day or in a weekend what it might take them 3 months to do. So people really appreciate it, and you can really see the impact that we make. So having an action chair is really important because they are the face of the section. They're the first person that anyone goes to if they have any questions. They represent the university and the community in lots of different ways, and they're always trying to liaise with other organisations to get us more ways to get involved.
Hello and welcome to the Soapbox studio. Our first guest and our first candidate of the afternoon is Jodie Evans, the current Action Chair and the Action candidate for this year. Jodie, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Please take away your opening statement.
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans and I'm re-running to be this year's Action Chair. So I've been Action Chair over the previous year after running in last year's executive elections, and I unfortunately did not get to I did not get to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do this year due to COVID alongside many of my fellow exec. So my 3 points on my manifesto this year are around establishing and expanding, so using what I've learnt this year through COVID and mixing it with what worked best pre-COVID. I also want to... I've completely blanked this, is I'm just going to skip.
We'll go straight on then. We'll go straight on. That's fine. So we'll go straight onto your manifesto, onto the final manifesto point we'll start with. But last year you said in your manifesto that you wanted to collaborate with associations,
yes,
and other union sections and engage minority groups. And a similar theme comes up again this year. You've now got your collaborations officer. They're here. Yeah. Why didn't it happen last year, and why are you having to do it again this year?
So we did some collaborations over the past year, but because of COVID, so many restrictions, when I started in the role, they said, okay, only 2% of your projects can run. And we've worked so hard over the past year to get them to adapt to be able to run through COVID. More of them work virtually now, and a lot of associations are doing takeovers of soup kitchen. It's the only indoor in-person project that we are running at the moment, but again, it's limited to 4 volunteers every single week. So due to the limitations that have been put on us because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to do the collaborations that I really wanted to do, because the collaborations is where we're going to increase our student engagement and get people to really know what action is and understand it. That's where I want to carry on in the role. This year we've actually had every single exec member do a project, which I think is the first time that's ever happened. So I was actually over the moon, and as soon as they did a project for the first time, they were like, I understand why you love this so much now. So if I can get the collaborations officer to do that, carry on and really make them help open people's eyes to what action is and what we do, then I think that would be perfect.
And how will this new role and the role you've now got provide volunteering opportunities to these minority groups?
So my first year on Action Committee, I was collaborations officer. I focused at that point on departments, which is why it then became departments coordinator in my second year on committee. I also worked alongside AU clubs, so we advertised to the AU clubs what projects we've got on. I went round the sports bazaar on my first weekend back in Loughborough as a student, and I went round and gave my email address to every single chair of every single AU club, and I was like, if you want to do any sort of action, let me know. I also sat down with Joel, who was chaired that year, and we made a list of all of the societies on which project would really work well with each individual society, and we sent them a list through and said, well, there's this one as an option. We've had a couple of societies contact us this year saying they want to do takeovers of things like dog walking, which unfortunately no longer runs, and the alpaca farm. So trying to find some more animal projects I think would be really good for collaborations. And then this year we've also, through Student Volunteer Week, had Gardening Society really get involved with us helping the Landscaping LSU project.
I guess the main problem, though, is that engagement has been down this year. I mean, rather unavoidably due to the pandemic, but this is something you've got to increase next year and get back to normal level. So how do you think you're going to achieve that, and what kind of pathways you're going to create to getting that engagement back?
I want to challenge my committee next year, really empower them in their roles as senior volunteers to run focus groups with different groups of students. Obviously, we can ask our Action senior volunteers what they want to see, but that's just one group of students. That's not us reaching out across the board. So I think when LSU does things right, it's when they reach out and they get a wide range of views. So I think if we can get collaborations doing focus groups with different associations from welfare, different student groups from enterprise. I can try and find a way of getting people who aren't necessarily engaged with LSU at all and work on projects that we can get them engaged with. I'm hopefully going to have a postgraduate officer next year to really reach out to postgrads, because I know so many postgrads want to get involved with volunteering in the community. But a lot of our projects run when in their working hours, or they have their kids on the weekend. So it's about trying to find the balances, and I think the best way to do that is through student focus groups.
Yeah, we're definitely going to come back to the postgraduate officer and also to feedback later on the interview. But going back to engagement and getting these numbers up again, do you think that COVID and the damage that it's done to engagement, to volunteer numbers, will have a long-lasting or even permanent effect on the number of people who get involved in action?
I don't think so. I think action's been one of the strongest sections this year for engagement. We've managed to stay on our feet thanks to COVID Community Champions. We got so many students who've never done action, never done community volunteering before involved. I think compared to last year's numbers, I'm about two-thirds to a half to two-thirds of the way catching up to what Pippa had, and obviously Pippa was hit bad by COVID as well. I said when I started this year, if I could get up to 70% of what Pippa's did last year, then I'd be absolutely over the moon. We'll probably reach that as well, because we're very lucky that we've got our overseas trips still going ahead in summer. So Thailand and Nepal are still going ahead. Uganda unfortunately had to be cancelled due to COVID as well. But because of those, that's going to help our engagement numbers increase as well. Our hours will go up, and I might actually be able to match what Pippa achieved last year.
And you say you have a roadmap to relaunch projects with suitable contingency plans based on COVID. So what will this look like, and actually how is that plan going to increase your engagement?
So I think the best way to explain this is an example. So when I sat down with the nursery last, we spoke about a 4-stage plan of how we can get volunteers back in the nursery. It's one of our most popular projects, and people can kind of do that freelance. They just go in, do an hour here and there, and it works all perfectly fine. But they can't do that at the minute. So stage 4 of our roadmap would be that they could go back in and volunteer fully back to normal. We'd start with stage 1 being that it's only for scheduled events. Or virtual events, and we'd have a limit of up to 6 volunteers going in, and they'd be outside in the playground of the nursery. They'd be masked up the whole time working with the kids, and they'd do a set amount of time for a very, very organised event. It would all be risk assessed, like to the bone, and nothing would go unturned. And then we'd have step 2, getting a few more volunteers involved, bringing them inside, but still for organised projects. And then step 3 would be starting to loosen up a bit, having people go in a bit more, but there would be limited numbers and very still COVID secure in place until we can get back to step 4, which is having the volunteers go in and it's normal for the nursery.
I guess the real question is, though, that engagement had been kind of dropping anyway, regardless of COVID, and there were less volunteers getting involved. And I've seen some people blame the changing demographic as this kind of excuse that they give for these kind of things. So, but fundamentally, do you think that we were coming towards this kind of thing anyway, and student volunteering was dropping off regardless of COVID?
I don't think so in terms of community volunteering. I remember this was one of the questions I got asked last year, was how would we keep up engagement with the demographic changing? And that became one of my stronger points, because I was the department's coordinator. When I stepped in Joel's year, we implemented SIOs to have voting rights, so they could have more of a say of what they wanted doing in the section. And as soon as you start reaching out to the student groups that are the demographic changing, and you highlight the areas, okay, this is where we need to reach out to, that's when you can really start to listen, take their ideas on board. A lot more of our projects are around tutoring and education now, and so we can really, really help them. This year we have Action Tutoring and Ottoman's Institution, so they're both external organisations, so it's brokerage projects, but they work really well, and we're able to help tutor students across the globe. And we can also have a look at highlighting how volunteering works to help you develop yourself professionally. So one of my points under my second point on my manifesto is about increasing transferable skills and highlighting them for each project. If someone comes in and goes, I really want to develop my communication skills, then we can point them in the direction of, say, contact the elderly, because you'll be working with people who are a bit harder of hearing. So you really need to work on your enunciation, your communication, pacing, your volume, and you'll get a lot better at your communication and take those skills forward.
And you mentioned departments, but I think you'd accept that halls are kind of the key pillar behind action, and you're very hall dependent. And I think you got asked this last year as well, but it remains a really important point, which is that you are, as a section, very, very dependent on halls, and as we've seen, hall volunteering can fluctuate. Sometimes that, you know, some hall reps are not as reliable as others. How do you plan to wean off this dependency, and do you think COVID-19 could be a turning point in this?
I think the dependency for halls is more for our 18 projects, and the reason why we've been so dependent on them this year is our 18 projects are one of the only bunch of projects that can run. Alongside that, in Pippa's year we had 31 projects. Going into 2021, September 2021, we'll have 36 projects. So over COVID year, more people have been coming to us and saying, we want to work with you. We've gone through, we've done the safety checks, and we've seen, right, this could be a really amazing project. And I think the more projects we have outside of A teams, the less dependent we're going to be on halls to bring us the volunteers.
And I guess one of those areas that maybe isn't as tapped and it's been left by the wayside in previous years is town. And students who live in town, you know, over half the students reside in town. So how are you going to get more engagement from these students?
I think Student Volunteer Week is one of the best places to get community volunteers. So anyone who lives off campus gets involved more when there's Student Volunteer Week, because it's when our normal hall projects would run continuously throughout the week. My plan is to have a mini Student Volunteer Week straight after Freshers in October, and have all of our projects run, all the A teams run, and community volunteers can sign up online to which projects they want to do. We had Student Volunteer Week run on from the 26th of April this year, and we had a lot more community volunteers getting involved than hall volunteers, which was absolutely amazing to see. And we've had loads of messages come in like, how else can I get involved? And I felt really bad telling them at the minute it's just hall projects that are running. But if you tell me which project you're interested in, then if I know a hall's not managed to fill a project, I can contact them. So there's one really lovely girl who's part of the Gardening Society, and she jumped in for a project last week that we didn't fill the volunteers for.
Okay, so jumping on from that, we're now going to move to a video question. A question from one of your Action Committee, in fact, Chris Nixon, who sent us a fantastic video question that we're going to play for you now.
Hi, my name's Chris, and I'm the Action Equality and Diversity Officer this year. My question for the Action candidates is, what is the one thing that you'd really want to accomplish this year that, to be fair, in your case, you might not have been able to accomplish this year, but if you could accomplish it next year, you'd say that the year had been a resounding success? And my second question is, what is your favourite thing about Action? Lots of people say that it evokes lots of emotions, you know, people really enjoy volunteering, but what for you personally is the number one thing about volunteering in Action?
Oh.
Okay, there you
go. They're tricky. So I think going from this year, one of the things that I was most proud of was beating the Operation Jingle Bells record. So we got 1,000 toys this year, which beat Joel's that year and beat Pippa's year, and that was absolutely amazing. So I think the next big thing for me to accomplish next year, probably beating the record for food drive. I think if you set yourself a challenge that could be attainable, would be really good, especially as we've lost dog walking this year. We used to get a lot of food for the kennels over our food drive, so we switched this year to supporting Wenlow RDA, which is one of the projects we work with for horse riding. So roughly £800 will be going to them, and that's absolutely amazing. So I think if we could have a year where we just absolutely smash the food drive coming out of the pandemic, especially with so many people losing jobs because of the pandemic and not having enough money to feed their families, if we can be the people that help get food on their tables, that would be absolutely amazing. But other than that, my big one that I really wanted to do this year was collecting aluminium cans, like Coke cans. And if we collect 1 million of these, we can make a helipad at Leicester Hospital. And I've wanted to do this since I think my second year. We had someone approach me when I was on the Environment and Ethics Committee, but we didn't have the resources at the time to help. And this year when I came on as chair, I was like, yes, we'll make it happen. We were going to get bins put behind all the bars. We were going to make it a really big event, but then COVID's carried on. So I think next year, if we manage to hit the million, that would be my big thing. And then the thing I love most about Action, so I released a campaign called Doing Good Does You Good with the help of LSU Media this year. And I think sharing people's stories and really showing how volunteering can help get people out of the dark stages of their life. For me, it helped me get through depression and anxiety. It helped me through really, really tough times. And if I can be that person that helps others get through those tough times and see there's a light at the end of the tunnel, then it just makes you feel really warm on the inside. And I think that's why I love Action so much.
But I guess moving on from why you love Action so much and what the best thing about Action is, what one thing would you change about Action? What is one thing that you would itemise as a problem in Action and that you'd want to address?
I think we need to maybe do a fine-tooth comb through our projects. There's some projects that were set up 5-10 years ago and they were absolutely amazing when they were set up, and now they're struggling because they don't fit the current time. It's not. So for example, and this is a bit of a weird one, so this year I cut our STEM project. It's something that does fit the current time, so this was a bit of a weird one. But students weren't interested in helping it. They didn't understand what the project was, what we were doing. We struggled to get project leaders for it. So we kind of ended up chopping that project completely and changing it to make it a bit more of a fun project for kids to come in, and challenged our department SIOs to come up with something new that would increase engagement, that would get volunteers. So it's all about just trying to find the right angles.
And I guess one criticism that often people have about Action is you're focused a lot on data and metrics and hours, rather than maybe not on the impact of your projects or on what volunteers do to the community. So is it right to keep focusing on hours and the numbers, and does that devalue the impact of some of your projects?
So the hours aren't actually a measurement of time. The hours are a measurement of impact. So one of our 18 projects we'd say has an impact worth 3 hours, but you'd only actually do the project for an hour and a half. So I think we kind of do cover it, and it's not until you're in Action or you're really explained what hours mean. And people count up and they're like, oh, but I did this project from 2 till 3:30, so it's an hour and a half. And I'm like, no, you actually earned 3 hours for it.
But do you think people are doing it for the hours rather than actually for the love of community volunteering?
I think there can be people that do it for the hours, and sometimes it can be a drive, especially for people, hall reps as well. They get points when people reach milestones in the hours, and we reward people when they reach 10 hours, 25 hours, and it's just a nice thing to be like, you've done really, really well, you've volunteered this much, and here's a sort of reward for it. And our hall reps can target people who are closer to a milestone rather than getting new people in. But I think the way to change it isn't to get rid of the hour system and remove it, because having rewards for doing something just out the kindness of your heart is still really nice. But I think it's more communication on social media, communication in person of, okay, this is what you've done. We've got a video coming out for Student Volunteer Week, and in that video is going to be, after each project's been talked about, a slide saying exactly what the impact those volunteers had. I know it's one of the big things that people do struggle with because they do a project. For example, the LSU Sustainability was students coming to me saying, why don't we change this area? Why don't we make it safer? And I lobbied that with the union and my directors, and they went to the university. And then they said, okay, can we be involved in the change? And that's why it became a project, because they wanted to be involved with the change. But for students who weren't the ones coming to me about it, they didn't know what impact they were having. So it was about doing an introduction before they went on the project and making sure it's advertised to everybody after the project as well.
And I guess one group that isn't maybe as motivated by the idea of hours are the postgraduates. Yeah. And you've mentioned that in your manifesto. And you've specifically said that you want them to be facilitating and understanding the limitations restricting postgraduate engagement. But how are you going to be facilitating these new opportunities in the postgraduate community, both here but also in London?
We've actually, this is really exciting, got our first action project in London this year running. I managed to contact Amy Woodyat, who's the current London president, and I sent her through a brokerage project, which I got sent through, and it's a really exciting opportunity working with the disabled and a sort of buddy system. So if we can facilitate and do more projects up there, and I think brokerage is a really good idea, because brokerage you're not limited to just 9 to 5 hours like you are here, and we do as many weekend projects as we can, but weekend projects for mature students isn't going to fit them, they've got children. When I ran focus groups in September, one of the things that we brought up was having undergrads do a kids event for the postgrads who have children, and the postgrads can then go and do a project of their choice, which will run at the same time as long as we know which one they want to do. If they want to go to the alpaca farm, they can go to the alpaca farm while we run a special event for their children. And it's all about just making sure that we find the balance between what they want and what's feasible to achieve.
Okay, and then the final question, it's more of a holistic one, looking at the entirety of the exec team. And there's been much talk about restructures in the exec team over the last year or so, and this could positively or negatively impact Action. So what do you see Action's future relationship being with the exec team under a possible new structure, and how will you ensure that it doesn't negatively affect your section or your community volunteers?
I'm a big fighter. Anyone, if you speak to any of the current exec team, they'll tell you that I fight a lot for my section. If I don't think something is fair, then I will say it. I think the changes that have been discussed by our team this year, the outcome at the moment is positively affecting Action. It means that the Action Chair's time isn't going to be spent doing a lot of meetings and things that aren't directly related to Action, but they can more directly do the operational side, getting more projects out, getting more volunteers in, increasing the engagement without having their time taken up by other meetings. One of the things this year that I found really useful is having Teams meetings, because I can do my operational side at the same time as being on Teams. And whereas in person meetings, like, that's just very rude to do. But yes, so I will continuously fight to make sure whatever changes get made are the best for Action still. As a whole, I will continuously fight to make sure that any changes that get made are the best for LSU. When you step into a role on exec, you're not just stepping in to be the head of your section, but you're representing all students and you're representing this organisation. So if someone had an opinion that you didn't agree with and you don't think is right, being able to voice it and voice it correctly as well. So you're not just doing it in like a petty way or to get at them, is a very important skill to have when you run for exec.
Well, thank you very much, Jodie. Your closing 30-second statement, please.
Okay. So hi, I'm Jodie, and I hope you enjoyed watching my soapbox today. I hope I answered all of your questions. If you have any more, then Hettie and I will be doing a RAG and Action Q&A on Wednesday night. If you have anything else that you would like to ask me, you can also contact me on any of my social medias, and I hope that I've managed to get your vote in this year's exec elections. Thank you.
There we go. That's Jodie Evans, your Action candidate for this year. We're going to hand back now to Danny and Sophie, who are with Matt Youngs, I believe.
Yes, we are with Matt Youngs, LSU president. So obviously that's a very nerve-wracking experience that you've been through a couple of times. How do you think she did? How did Jodie do?
Yeah, I think Jodie did well overall. I think the real challenge for all of the candidates that are incumbent officers rerunning this year is to prove in what way they are going to be different next year. I think obviously COVID has been a really challenging year for everybody, but just rerunning because you haven't experienced a normal year, I think for me is something you need to be showing that you're doing more than just that, bringing new ideas, bringing new creativity. And I think Jodie's made a good start to campaign week, but I think in order to push herself going forward now, she needs to start showing why she's got the breadth of knowledge to drive action through into post-COVID times.
Yes, obviously. How, as president, would you personally see action going forward from here?
So I think Action's got to learn a lesson that I think all of us have learned, which is the benefit of virtual interaction and virtual activities. We've all experienced that through, obviously, learning and teaching, but I think there's real appetite there for accessibility and inclusivity through virtual activities as well. Obviously, Action has, in the past, been so heavily dependent on that in-person interaction. And whilst that is so important that we bring that back going forwards, actually, let's keep some of those virtual activities because it benefits an awful lot of communities as well, both here at Loughborough but also in the local community.
Brilliant. Well, Josh did mention in that interview a couple of times about the dependency that Action has on halls. And obviously I think that's pretty wide throughout the union, like different sections often are dependent on halls. How do you see it going forward? Will that change?
So I think we've got to preserve the great joy that halls do bring for all of us. I mean, we all start in a hall of residence at some point in our university journey, but for a lot of us, we may only experience halls for 1 or 2 years, and as a result, there's an entirely untapped community out there which we need to break into as a students' union. Students living in town will historically be lower engaged than they are if they're in halls, and I think there is a real opportunity with departments as well, because whilst not every student is a member of a hall, every single student at Loughborough is a member of a department, and whilst they are much younger in their Loughborough journey compared to halls, I think departments is the next big thing that all of the officers have got to tap into.
Definitely, yes. And as a kind of final question, what would you say is your favourite Action project?
Oh, there are so many to choose from. I think you've got to be a very different kind of person to not find alpacas exceptionally cute.
Yes.
So I think the alpaca farm is a classic one that a lot of people are a big fan of.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much, Matt Youngs.
Thank you.
We have a highlight reel up now of just what happened during that interview with Jodie Evans.
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans and I'm rerunning to be this year's Action Chair. I'm just going to skip.
Why didn't it happen last year and why are you having to do it again this year?
So we did some collaborations over the past year, but because of COVID, so many restrictions, and I gave my email address to every single chair of every single AU club, and I was like, if you want to do any sort of action, let me know. So trying to find some more animal projects, I think would be really good for collaboration.
How do you think you're going to achieve that, and what kind of pathways you're going to create to getting that engagement back?
I want to challenge my committee next year. I can try and find a way of getting people who aren't necessarily engaged with LSU at all and work on projects that we can get them engaged with.
I think that COVID and the damage that it's done to engagement, to volunteer numbers, will have a long-lasting or even permanent effect on the number of people who get involved in Action.
I don't think so. I think Action's been one of the strongest sections this year for engagement. We've managed to stay on our feet thanks to COVID Community Champions. We got so many students who've never done Action, never in this. I think the dependency for halls is more for our 18 projects, and the reason why we've been so dependent on them this year is our 18 projects are one of the only bunch of projects that can run. Alongside that, in Pippa's year we had 31 projects going into 2021. September 2021 we'll have 36 projects. So over COVID year, more people have been coming to us and saying, we want to work with you. We've gone through, we've done the safety checks and we've seen, right, this could be a really amazing project. My plan is to have a mini student volunteer week straight after Freshers in October and have all of our projects run, all the 18s run, and community volunteers can sign up online to which projects they want to do. maybe do a fine-tooth comb through our projects. There's some projects that were set up 5-10 years ago, and they were absolutely amazing when they were set. They're tricky.
Hello and welcome back. We are now joined by Jodie Evans. Hello. I mean, you did amazing in there. You talked about communication skills and you aced it. How do you feel it went?
I messed up my opening statement quite bad, but yeah, it's a bit nerve-wracking, but I think it went okay.
Yes, well, obviously second time round for you. How do you think it differed, with last time?
I think, so last year, obviously, I had Tom, and Tom for me was a big support. Having a running mate is a lot nicer, although because you go in like, oh, I'm uncontested, like you can breathe a bit more, but you really can't. Having Tom, like whenever you got nervous, someone else was going through it at the same time, someone else was nervous as well, so that side of it was quite nice. And then for all the questions today, it was just me yammering on.
It was just on you, yeah.
Does that mean you'd prefer to be contested?
I think so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
I think as well, if you're contested, you know you're the person that the students want in the role. Whereas if you're uncontested, it's like, oh, like it was either me or no one, well, Ron.
Okay, well, one last question for you. If you had unlimited resources, what action project would you want to introduce?
I want to bring back our own dog walking. I'm so sad that dog walking went this year.
Those
so
puppies were so cute.
If we could fund a new dog kennel somewhere and we can do the dog walking there every single day, it'd be great. It'd be amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jodie Evans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so up next we have Hettie Bawden rerunning as the RAG chair. So here's a short clip from her.
Hi, I'm Hettie Bawden and I'm running for RAG section chair. I'm running in this election because I've already been RAG chair for a year, and I feel that there's still so much more that I can bring to the role and also that I can gain from the role personally, and I'd love to see what I'm capable of as we emerge from the pandemic. You should vote for me because I've got the experience of being in the role for a year already. I know the ins and outs of RAGs when it is completely stripped back, and so I'll be able to build on those foundations to make RAG thrive in the next year.
So this is for the RAG section, which is raising money for charity. They raise £1 million for charity every year.
Yeah, I think £1 million for the last 10 years or so.
It's incredible. So we're going to have a little look at what this section involves.
Our RAG chair oversees all the ways through which we support our students to fundraise for charities that are important to them. From internal events to external challenges to raids and a number of different opportunities, we offer a diverse range of activities through which students can fundraise for charities around the world. Well, I think the thing I love most about RAG is the community that it builds with these different students who are passionate about different things and working with different charities, but doing something entirely selfless and wonderful and committing to it and being able to contribute in that way. And so finding other people who are just as passionate about contributing that way, I think I really love that about the RAG community. Well, it's no secret that we've raised over £1 million for almost every year in the last decade, and a lot of that is down to the hard work of our RAG section, the committee and the chair, working year on year to introduce new opportunities and new ways through which students can fundraise. So I think it's exceedingly important that we continue to have a chair who's intensely focused on empowering students to fundraise for different charities.
Well, there we go. It's our second interview of the afternoon, our second section chair. It's Hettie Bawden, the candidate for RAG. Hettie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing today, Josh?
Good, thank you. Your 60-second opening statement, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hettie Bawden, and I am rerunning to be elected as your RAG chair for 2021 to 22. I strongly believe that I'm the best candidate for this position because I've held the position of RAG chair for a year already, and that is on top of my experience as a committee member, a RAG rep and a team leader throughout my 3 years at university. Not only that, I've also had the experience of being co-chair for the National Student Fundraising Association this year. So I've connected and networked with RAGs from across the country, learnt how they operate, and this has enabled me to look into ourselves to see how we can improve. I strongly believe that my manifesto, focusing on students, charities and strategies, reflects these improvements that needs to be made. Students and charities should always be a priority for LSU RAG, and you deserve a strategy that reflects this.
Okay then, so we'll go on to our first question then. And you talk about RAG priorities there.
Yes.
And it's no secret that RAG holds the £1 million as a pretty high priority every year. But year on year, this total has kind of been declining since a peak a few years ago. And this has been obviously seen clearly through the COVID pandemic. But importantly, how will you reach this total next year?
So, to be completely honest with you, Josh, my priorities this year have shifted drastically whilst being on chair, with seeing RAG being stripped back to the bare bones. I've learnt that the million isn't the be-all and end-all, and I have been very transparent with my committee and the reps throughout the year, and to be honest, anyone that will listen. RAG's priorities should be student opportunities, raising money for charity, and whatever we raise as a consequence of this is a bonus in my eyes. So whilst the million is a fantastic target to aim for, it shouldn't be our top priority.
You say RAG been stripped back.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
We have, with coronavirus, unfortunately we haven't been able to run a lot of the events that we would usually run, and although at the start of the year there was a lot of hope for our external challenges and recruitment for them, since then a number of them have been postponed due to coronavirus, due to the pandemic. So I've had a lot more time to look into the bare bones of what RAG as a section is and how we operate, and less focus on the day-to-day, and it's really enlightened me and changed my perspective on the section.
So how's it change your perspective? What's your new perspective on RAG?
My new perspective is that, quite frankly, there's a lot of issues in how we operate. I don't think that historically we have prioritised the correct things. Previous RAG chairs, they've been fantastic, but everything is centred around that raising £1 million, and the opportunities that they choose all feed into that. They'll pick a fundraising, they'll pick a trip because it's got a higher fundraising target, because that gets them more money at the end of the day. And that's not how things should be done. We should be picking a trip because it's exciting for students, and we shouldn't be scared to pick ones with lower fundraising targets that make it more accessible for students to sign up for them.
It's interesting because in your manifesto you said that you're the candidate of continuity for RAG, and not necessarily the candidate for change. But so you're saying that actually RAG does need change, and that you're the person who can bring it this year?
It needs change, yes, and I appreciate that perhaps is a bit of a juxtaposition. For people that haven't seen how I've been working as RAG chair this year, it may perhaps be confusing, but I have already started to try and implement some changes throughout the year through identifying the problems. And so when I say that I'm the candidate for continuity, I mean that I will continue to prioritise and fight for those changes to be made and create a better RAG in the future.
So what changes have you made this year then?
So far this year, I've spent a lot of time updating our constitution at the start of the year, discovered that hadn't been, well, it had been updated, but the latest version was from 2016. So we've got a lot better base layer for all of RAG's operations. I've also took a very brave step away from a challenge provider that we have historically worked with and who gave us a lot of support, but they were not the right option for the students. And when I came into the role, that was one of the first changes I made, was that we would not be working with them anymore. And it's been an interesting year working with a much greater variety of challenge providers this year, but I think that it's in the best student interest.
So, and you also in your manifesto you say that you talk about efficiency and the efficiency of trips that you organise internally as well. So do you think that leaving this provider and going to more of a haphazard approach of having multiple different ones is actually increasing the efficiency of the section?
I think it enables us to refocus and reprioritise. It's the first few years of it moving away will be a bit rocky, understandably, because we've worked for this provider for a number of years, and trying to establish relationships with new charities, new providers is going to be difficult. But also it does create some freedom that not all of our trips have to go through them, and it has enabled us to organise more trips internally, such as our skydive, Tough Mudder, Dare. And whilst we have been able to successfully get them up and running, when I talk about increasing the efficiency of them, there is definite improvements to be made in how we organise them.
So go back to your manifesto then, and the start of your manifesto. The first thing that you say is that you've achieved and delivered on your goals from your previous manifesto.
Yes.
Can you name some of these achievements that you've made from your previous manifesto?
Absolutely. I think the most significant, in my eyes, achievement that I've been able to deliver upon is to offer students more opportunities to fundraise for charities of their choice, and I delivered that through implementing that for our tandem skydive. This year we had over 200 skydive participants sign up, and they are all fundraising for charities that are personal and close to their hearts, and it's been really fantastic to see some of the stories behind why they're doing the jumps.
So a couple of the things that you had on your manifesto last year then, because obviously you mentioned that you've achieved these goals, I just want to check. So one of them is improving rep handover and training.
Yeah.
How have you improved that this year? And how do you expect to advance upon that next year?
So something that it's been a bit of a blessing in that last year, due to coronavirus, the previous MAG chair, Maz, couldn't hold her rep training in March when it would usually happen. So I was able to hold a rep training session in September, after which I released a feedback form and spoke to reps about what was good, what was bad, what could be improved. And after each rep training session, we have started to implement it when new reps come on and not just at one point in the year, which was also historically how things was done. After each rep training session, we collate that feedback and I update the presentation, I change how we do things, and we always bear it in mind moving forward. And that's something that I would like to continue to see as to enable to us to continue to higher the standard of our rep training.
And nothing that was in your manifesto this year, which I think has been raised by someone who sent in a question to us, is about London. And you mentioned London last year, and you mentioned the postgraduate community as well last year as well. But obviously, as a consequence of COVID, you've not necessarily had the ability to do anything in London this year at all. But considering a lot of opportunities are abroad, and you know the raids are normally in London, how are you going to create a more permanent presence in London for the 1,000 students who are there?
I think that's a really good question, and to be completely honest, because of coronavirus, I haven't been able to make contact with the London campus because there hasn't been opportunities for us to present. So at the moment, I only have the temporary opportunities, such as through raids and potentially offering them the external challenges. But if I'm able to make contact with them this year, which I am prioritising, then I would be love to explore more permanent solutions.
I'm sure their email will be sent your way very quickly after this interview.
Can't wait.
Going back onto events then and what you do in your section, you've not really been able to run a full slate of events this year, and I think this is something that we're accepting that all of the candidates this year in the election have dealt with. But therefore, kind of the internal events you run, the name recognition of these events may have reduced because you've got an entire cohort of freshers who have never seen them before. And these events have often suffered in the past and historically, but recently made some good profits. Things like Beer Keller are a good example of this. So how do you plan to bring back such events post-COVID, make them profitable, and get the new cohort of freshers, 2 years worth of freshers, to recognise these events and go to them?
I think I'm in a very fortunate position in that I was internal events coordinator on committee 2 years ago, so I've got the experience of what it is to organise and promote those events. And for our existing events that we may wish to bring back, such as Colour Dash and Beer Keller, Jane, the RAG administrator, and myself have already started putting plans in place to create very detailed how-to guides to be able to start organising it nice and early, get preparation in there so that when the event eventually comes around, we've got everything in place to make sure that it is as good as it possibly can be. But also, I think that this has created an opportunity for us to introduce some new events. I don't know what they may be yet, just preempting your next question potentially. And it's not all about recycling events that have been done previously. If we've got people that have never seen what RAG can offer before, then that's a fantastic opportunity for us to give them something new and excite them.
So how are you going to excite and engage these new students then? What kind of things are you going to, not necessarily events, but what kind of methods are you going to employ to engage students who have never really been engaged with RAG or know what RAG is?
I think that one one avenue that could be explored, and which I have mentioned in my manifesto to engage more demographics of students, is collecting feedback from them, finding out what's important to them, what they would like to see for student fundraising opportunities. Whilst the existing members of RAG have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge and a lot of passion, we do not represent every student at Loughborough, and so feedback will be the way for us to go about making sure that our opportunities are enabled to do that.
I think feedback is a theme that's common across all the manifestos from all of the candidates really this year, but so why haven't you been able to get this feedback this year, and why are you waiting until your next term to do this?
I think, to be completely honest, just it hasn't been, because there's not anything necessarily happening, it's difficult to know when the best time to collect feedback is. If there's not stuff happening, then people aren't engaged with the section as a whole, so there's no guarantee that they would engage in the feedback because they don't know what's on offer or what would usually be on offer. So it's a difficult one, and there's no straight answer to it, to be honest with you.
Fair enough. In your manifesto, you also mentioned about budgeting and finances and budget plans, and you say that you're going to create an effective budget plan for RAG's operations to enable increased charitable profit percentage. And we're now going to go down to Danny, who has a question on this topic.
Yes, hi Hettie. So a lot of money is spent on internal events to create them, and they are therefore some of the best events that we have here at Loughborough University. But therefore, little of the money actually gets to go to the charity. How do you wish to change this?
So thank you very much for that question, Danny, or whoever sent that question, I'm not sure. I think that what I say in my manifesto about the budget plan is primarily how I would like to approach this. As I mentioned a couple of minutes previously, myself and Jane have already been working on the how-to guides, and as part of it, we are going to be including some much stricter budgeting. From my understanding as internal events coordinator a few years ago, we didn't have anything like that. We knew what we had to put on, we knew what we had to spend money on, but there was no cap on the spending. And so just really small things like that, with knowing exactly how much we need of a product, so like paint for Colour Dash, and what our budgets is, and able to be able to make a profit. So, you know, we can spend this much money, and that's based on if we get 200 people attending, and then this much money goes to charity. Just working with Jane and the finance team to actually look into the efficiency of it, quite literally, because it just hasn't really existed previously.
So why do you think RAG hasn't been efficient in the past? Do you think it's the fault of previous section chairs? Is it the fault of your committee, or what is the reason why RAG hasn't been efficient?
I don't think it's fair to say that it hasn't been efficient. I just don't think it's been efficient in this specific way, because previous section chairs and previous committee members have prioritised different elements of it. So a few years ago, we had a system where after each internal event we would sit down in our committee meetings and we would say, right, this is what went well, this is what didn't go well, this is how we're going to improve it. And that was the priority for that year, for improving internal events. And each year it changes. This year we haven't really had internal events. We've had some campaigns and they've been very successful, but the priorities have definitely shifted.
So going back to kind of your manifesto again then,
yes.
The other thing that you mentioned in here is developing more accessible fundraising opportunities, and accessibility again is something that comes up recurrently in all of the manifestos this year. But yes, accessibility is really important. So why hasn't this been already a priority this year to ensure that accessibility is embedded in RAG already?
I think it's been noted throughout the year and at different periods, but as I said towards the start, my priorities shifted after I came into the role, and so a lot of the opportunities where we could have made student fundraising more accessible had passed by the time that this really started to come to the forefront of my attention. For instance, our external trips that we run, we run a lot of trips with very high fundraising targets and not very many with smaller fundraising targets. That's fantastic for undergraduate students or people that have a lot of time to dedicate, but for postgraduates, they are very busy. And they're not going to be wanting to fundraise £2,000-3,000 for a trip, although they may appreciate the opportunity. So just introducing or exploring the option to introduce more trips with lower fundraising targets that they can engage in.
Are there other ways that you can make it more accessible as well, besides the kind of the monetary value?
I'm sure there are, but I think that would be a conversation to have with, for instance, the Welfare and Diversity Officer, because accessibility isn't just about monetary value, as you say, it's also about the diversity of students that we engage with. So that's a conversation that will be had.
Fair enough. I guess talking about the wider exec team, as you may have heard before, we've had a lot of discussion this year about the exec team and what the exec team will look like in the future. And similarly to the question asked earlier about to Jodie about action, what do you see RAG's future relationship being with the exec team under a potential new structure, and how will you ensure that that doesn't negatively affect your section?
I think that's a really interesting question, and I think the status of sections comes up year on year and is always revisited, but I think it's really important to remember that whilst every member of the executive team has a value and has a role, it is the sections that present the student opportunities, which is what LSU is. It's not all about that, but it is a very large part of what LSU is about. And so I think that the value of sections is really inherent in what we offer.
Fair enough. And you've also got, and finally, kind of going on to this strategy idea that you mentioned at the start, and you've not really maybe built upon what this strategy really means to you and kind of fleshed it out. So what do you see this looking like?
I think I see this looking like a template for RAG chairs to come, and by no means have I got the full knowledge and experience to be able to plan for 10 years in the future, but I can start to put the foundations in place, because each RAG chair comes on and they have their priorities for the year, they fulfil them or they don't, and then it moves on and it just refreshes, and there's not much continuity in where we're taking the section long term. And so the strategy, it's very early days in how it will look, but it will have a template to say this is where we'd like the section to be, and a large part of that is that discussions with the finance team that in the next couple of years RAG will no longer get any budget or money from LSU, so we need to be completely self-sufficient, and so the strategy will be looking at how we can achieve that and be prepared for when that time comes.
So I guess finally, if you do get elected to this role,
yes.
How will you make sure that you leave RAG in a better place when you leave than when you started?
I think that's a really good question, and I think it's not necessarily something that I myself can judge. I think that is going to come to the judgment of the people that I've worked with, the committee, the RAG reps, and the students more widely. But all I can do is continue to prioritise the improvements that I have seen that need to be made, and just work towards changes. It doesn't matter how long you're in a role, there's always something that can be improved for the better. So that's how I will continue to work towards it.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your closing statement, please.
Thank you so much to everyone that has tuned in to listen to the Soapbox. I hope that you have enjoyed the answers to my questions and found them informative. However, if you still have any questions for me, head along and follow my campaign pages at Hettie for RAG, where I'll be doing Q&As throughout the week. And remember, if you prioritise students, charities and strategy, then vote to re-elect Hettie for your RAG chair. Thank you, Josh.
Well, there we go. Hettie Bawden, the candidate for RAG. I'm going to hand back now to Danny and Sophie. How you doing?
Hi, Josh. Yes, we are here back again with Matt Youngs, our LSU president. So, how did you think that Hettie did?
I think we've seen two strong Soapbox performances so far. It sets it up really nicely for the rest of today and tomorrow. I think Hettie did a really good job of explaining the way in which she shaped the attitude that she takes to RAG this year. And I think the really brave decision to move away from seeing this £1 million mark as the thing you've always got to aim for is really good, because ultimately raising money for charity should be all about the impact it's having. And if we can increase the amount of impact we have in the local community, but also nationally and internationally, I think that's the far more sensible direction to take the section as well.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So we've seen all the candidates starting off their digital campaigns. What do you think is the best way to go about digital campaigning?
I think it's a real challenge this year. Obviously, digital campaigning has always been a part of the exec elections, but this year being wholly digital puts a whole new importance on it as well. And I think the thing that candidates have got to get right is ensuring you get a breadth of coverage. Historically, of course, something like a Facebook page would have been so important, but as we see trends shift away from Facebook and into new areas like TikTok, who would have heard of TikTok this time last year? And yet we've got candidates creating TikTok pages as well. I think getting that broad exposure will really tap into the student mindset and the student demographic, and hopefully mean we have more voters as well.
Yes, hopefully. So one thing that's been asked between Hettie and Jodie is how they would work with the executive officers. Now, there has been almost this thought that there's a split between the two. Is there a split? And if so, how would you close the gap?
So I think split is the wrong word. Is there a difference between their remits? Absolutely. I think the executive officers, through their job descriptions, person specifications, are representing the entire student population. Take the education executive officer, for example. We're all at university to study, and therefore we're all involved in education. The section chairs are much more operationally focused. They should be driving forward the student opportunities that LSU have to offer. In terms of conversations going forward in the future, I think it's a really interesting one, because when it comes to section chairs, is it about getting the right person or the most popular mandate? And that's a really interesting discussion to have that happens across all SUs all over the country. And I think it's a really exciting conversation to start having at Loughborough as well, which will hopefully shape the future of student opportunities.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you very much, Matt. We're going to hand back now. We're going to see some highlights from that RAG interview. So.
My name is Hettie Bawden, and I am rerunning to be elected as your RAG chair for 2021 to 22.
But importantly, how will you reach this total next year?
So, to be completely honest with you, Josh, my priorities this year have shifted drastically. And whatever we raise as a consequence of this is a bonus in my eyes.
What's your new perspective on RAG?
My new perspective is that, quite frankly, there's a lot of issues.
In your manifesto, you said that you're the candidate of continuity for RAG and not necessarily the candidate for change. But so you're saying that actually RAG does need change and that you're the person who can bring it this year?
It needs change, yes. And so when I say that I'm the candidate for continuity, I mean that I will continue to prioritise and fight for those changes to be made. I think that's a really good question. And to be completely honest, because of coronavirus, I haven't been able to make contact with the London campus. Becomes around, we've got everything in place to make sure that it is as good as it possibly can be.
Or little of the money actually gets to go to the charity. How do you wish to change this?
Much stricter budgeting. From my understanding as internal events coordinator a few years ago, we didn't have anything like that. We knew what we had to put on, we knew what we had to spend money on, but there was no cap on the spending. Whilst every member of the executive team has a value and has a role, it is the sections that present the student opportunities. I strongly believe that I'm the best candidate for this position.
Brilliant. Well, we're here now with Hettie. So how do you think that went?
I'm really happy with how that went, actually. I was quite stressed and nervous beforehand, but I feel like I took my time and answered the questions honestly, and that's the best that I could do.
Yeah,
nice.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, like Jodie, you are also rerunning.
I am,
but
yes.
Also, like Jodie, this time around, you're running uncontested. Is that worse? Is that better? How are you feeling about that?
It's different. I think being contested last year gave me a real boost to do well in my campaign, and especially because I hadn't been in the position before and I was running against someone who would have been equally as fantastic in the role. It was a very stressful experience. I think in a way I would have liked to have someone to run against this year to kind of give that motivation, but also everyone deserves the chance to run and to put themselves forward and put their ideas forward. But it is less stressful being uncontested, I will say.
Yes, it is a lot less stressful. Again, a very similar question we asked Jodie, but unlimited resources,
Oh, goodness.
what would be your RAG kind of event that you would love to hold?
I think I've said this since I first ran to be on RAG committee. I'd love to do a loft like a massive inflatable obstacle course up on the Hollywell pitches or something like that. I think it's not just resources. I think health and safety is a big part of that. But I'll work with Jade.
Said,
It'll be
health
fun.
and safety is not involved in this imaginary.
It'll be okay. But yeah, I'd love that.
Well, Hettie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you go off, I think we are switching mics. But thank you so much, and congratulations and good luck for the week ahead.
Thank you so much.
All right. We are now jumping in with Fajiro, our Vice President. Hello, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So we wanted to talk to you about RON. They are one of the candidates involved in this year. Who is RON? What do they do? Give us a brief overview of who they are.
Thank you very much for the question. So RON stands for Reopen Nominations. And it's essentially the democratic mechanism whereby students can make known their choice that they don't want any of the candidates running and they'd like their nominations to be reopened, possibly for other students to try to be elected onto these positions.
Nice. And obviously, if they get reopened, we then will have by-elections later. Also, we have that with media at the moment. So when would they be, roughly?
Well, typically, the by-elections just at some point in the future of the exec elections. We will generally look to finish the elections process before the end of the academic year. So it's likely to be later this month if we do have to reopen any of the nominations, as will be the case, of course, for media.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much, Fajiro. Obviously, always grateful to have you around talking to us.
We are now going to hand over to LCR. We've got a Soapbox Extra show with Lucy. Lucy, can you hear us? Is everything...
Hello, Sophie.
Yeah,
hello, Danny.
great.
How are you doing?
We are doing great. Hope you're ready to lead us through some analysis of how it's been going so far.
Oh, very much so.
All right. Well, over to you then, Lucy.
Exec Elections 2021 on LCR.
Okay, hello everyone. I am Lucy Lewis and I'm joined by Niall Salmon. We are here to give a roundup of the Soapbox. What do you think so far?
It's going really well, isn't it? Yeah. This is my first kind of election that I've been a part of. Wasn't really involved last year, so to see how it's going, I think it's really cool. I think everyone's doing so well at the moment. Really looking forward to getting to analyse what's been said already. So yeah, it's going really well.
We've had a couple of hot topics so far this year. So digital campaigns. Yeah. That is obviously very different. Very exciting things going on there. What do you think about them? Is it better? Is it worse? I'm not sure. You're a first year. I'm not sure if you remember the big, exciting, massive campaigns. What do you think of digital campaigning?
I think I'm for it. I think a lot of people have. Everyone's kind of done the campaigning beforehand. This is such a new way of analysing it and doing it. So people have become really creative with it. And I think it's worked for some people more than it has for other people. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I like the campaign on digital.
Have you seen any particularly strong digital campaigns yet?
Oh, I don't want to favourite anyone. So I'm gonna say no comment to that one. No, have you seen any good ones?
I do not use Facebook very much, so I haven't really noticed. Yeah. But it's so interesting to see how people will take this new sort of avenue of campaigning to something really special. You know, you can do TikToks and down with the kids.
Yeah. Was it? Yeah, Matt Young was mentioning the TikToks. Has anyone made a TikTok yet for the elections? Because I think there is a real opportunity to use the TikTok platform.
I think so. I mean, people probably have. I can't say I've noticed, but people have.
Yeah, I want to see a TikTok dance for the elections.
So we've got two roles that we just seen. So we had Action and RAG, both uncontested and both rerunning.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on these guys?
Yeah, so we had Jodie, didn't we, for the Action?
Mm-hmm.
Really good. I thought she answered the questions from Josh really well. Josh is a scary person to answer questions
I would
from.
not like to be in that
No,
seat.
no, I could see him questioning his flatmates on their breakfast. Saying, no, you should not be having your toast, you should be having some cereal. So the questions have been really hard, but I thought Jodie answered them really well, really clearly. She got over her points really well. And she did a great job last year, so I think she's up for it this year, and I think she'll do just as good as she did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we say they're uncontested, but obviously there's always Ron,
Yes.
which is always a very exciting campaign.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's an official Ron campaign this year, but Ron is always an option. Let's reopen nominations, which means that you can vote if you don't feel that Jodie or Hettie are appropriate for the role. You can always run.
Yes.
Bit of drama, bit of tea. We do love it.
Has that ever been happened before? Is that?
Not in my memory.
Okay.
Not in my memory,
Yeah.
but it's always a possibility.
Always
so if you don't find this suitable, then Ron.
Yeah, I would love to see Ron a bit more involved in it. I think people should hold the candidates to account a bit more
yeah,
than
totally.
than they used to.
And then of course we've got, in terms of both of them rerunning.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that's better or worse? Should we get a new perspective or should we have consistency?
Yeah, and that's what Matt was talking about, wasn't
Yeah.
he, during those two interviews, about how are they going to be different from this year? What's going to make them different? And I think Jodie was talking about the fact that there's a lot of her events this year, or a lot of her action projects were cut short. I think she's saying 2% of projects could only run this year. So the dog walking is not happening. So she's trying to find a different way of involving those loved animal projects, and that'd be really interesting to see how she's going to develop those.
Yeah, there was a lot of love for alpacas. I mean, controversial opinion, don't really like alpacas.
Don't you?
They're a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, I don't know whether I could trust an alpaca. I think they just need us. They just want us for food, I think. So I understand where you're coming from there, Lucy, on that one.
I definitely feel like an alpaca could take me in a fight.
Yes, I think so. And those Loughborough alpacas look quite strong.
They're scary things. So a lot of love for the animal projects. That's always a big one. But there's just so much going on this year, even though COVID has been a thing. Even regardless of everything that's been going on around the world, every section has been, really well managed, I think. I don't know if you've noticed that this year.
No, definitely, I have, yeah. You really think in a pandemic nothing's going to happen, but amazingly they've been able to just crack on with all this stuff. And it's been great. I think people have been involved in it more this year than other years, because they've got kind of nothing else to do. And it's been really good to see people get involved in it and discover a new love for getting involved in projects such as action and brag projects.
Though saying that, of course, we don't have a candidate for media this year.
No, we don't.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how the by-elections go.
Yeah. It's a sticky one, isn't it? It's a sticky one. I'm not sure why.
Not sure why.
Not sure why.
Media's a great section. Come and get involved.
It is a good section.
So now, like I say, you're a first year. So you're a first year technically. You've been here for a little while though, haven't you?
Yeah. So I swapped courses last year. It wasn't for me. Sports science wasn't for me. Let's hope they're not listening. So I moved to business. So yeah, I've been a part of Loughborough for 2 years now. Part of my little committee in my halls in Falkegg. So I think the elections are going really well.
Yeah. Is this the first kind of election that you've been involved with?
It is. Yeah. So just walking into today and seeing all the setup, I was like, wow, this is really cool. This is really professional. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So it's my first elections, and it's some really strong candidates this year as well. And hopefully we'll get some good results from it.
Yeah. So just to recap, so far we've covered Jodie, we've covered Hettie.
Yeah.
So have you had a chance to read their manifestos at all?
I haven't. Would you? Have you got that in front of you now?
We do have them in front of us. So we've got Jodie's main goals. We've got establish and expand. That's to do with sort of feedback, networking, and a roadmap to relaunch projects after COVID. We've got information and conversation. So that's empowering committee to collect feedback, creating a calendar to detail the projects that are going around, and then these section specific lists of transferable skills. And then we've got inclusivity and outreach, so that's again to do with the postgrad officers, and postgrad is always a very big topic. We always get a lot of engagement from the president's team, the postgraduate team, and they have been very active on Twitter.
Have they?
Talking about this. Of course, always asking the question, where is London in your manifestos, or where's the reference to postgraduates? And it's a very valid point. It's something that I think a lot of candidates do forget about. So I had a question there. It's gone completely out of my mind. So what are we thinking about, the candidates' manifestos in terms of inclusivity, postgraduate, things like that? I mean, accessibility has been a massive topic this year. So we've just gone through Jodie's. What do you think?
I think I think it's so important to not forget about the different parts of the Loughborough family. Because I think Matt was saying between those two interviews, there's so many people out in Loughborough town living in their houses who would love to get involved, I think, in these action projects and red projects, but they might feel that they're getting left out a little bit. And just going through those manifestos now, I think these candidates are trying to zone in on those people who are maybe forgotten about when they go out of campus and out of halls. So I think it's really nice to see those candidates so far trying to engage them and make sure that they're a part of it all.
And absolutely, we've got Hettie's manifesto as well, which is a focus on students, charities and strategy, which, 3 straightforward points. Students is, again, accessible fundraising, feedback. Feedback's a massive one this year. Everyone's really keen to get feedback, get people's thoughts. Charities, of course, it's RAG, that's kind of what they do. And then strategy is the future of the section altogether. It's just really interesting. And then when you look at these manifestos from candidates that have previously been in the roles, from the incumbents, I guess the question that comes up is, why have you waited until now? What do you think about that? Is it just that it's hard to achieve so much in 1 year, or?
Yeah, the amount of work that they have to do it's so much, isn't it? And a year, like you said, I just don't think a year is enough. And the fact that they want to be a part of it again, they've had a year doing all this work. You've done it for a year. If you don't like it, you're probably just going to say, cheers guys, I'm off now. The fact that they want to come back and have another go at it and continue these projects on that looks good. I would vote for that. That's really encouraging, and it allows those projects that they've already done to develop to that next step to get even better. So, which I think is great.
Yeah, and that's always a problem, isn't it, of the lack of consistency between years, because you can't make a strategic direction in 1 year if somebody else is going to take over the next year and decide they want to do something different. Are you particularly involved in any one section?
I'm involved in the sport, so that was my little role at Fork Egg. So I'm part of the sport a little bit, but also part of the media as well.
Of course.
So which isn't being contested this year, but yeah.
No, we've had a lovely tweet from Rahul Matheson come in saying, hashtag LSU elections, which is our hashtag, by the way. New action project, find volunteers to run for media chat. Thanks for that, Rahul. Yeah. But no, there's a lot of really interesting engagement on. If you want to get involved in the elections, you can tweet hashtag LSU elections. I'm keeping an eye on it out here. TV's keeping an eye on it over there. So we will be happy to discuss any of your interesting tweets. A lot of people asking, where's the actual soapbox? I don't remember if you remember the actual soapbox. There was a physical box.
There? Okay. I haven't seen that before.
Maybe we need to launch an investigation into where the actual soapbox has gone.
I'll lead that one.
Okay, I have just been informed the actual soapboxes are mouldy.
Is it? Oh no.
They have been left outside during the rain, leaving them completely unusable. So instead we've sourced some chairs from elsewhere. So all part of the elections prep. It's all going very well. I think we are just getting ready to hand over, but did you have any general observations about everything that we saw?
Yeah, what I thought was really good from Hettie was the emphasis on that £1 million. It looks amazing. £1 million is amazing for charity, but Matt picked up on it as well. It's actually about the impacts of that charity, what it does on communities, not just ticking that box for £1 million. It's actually what the impact it has on people and the community. So I thought that was a really interesting point that was made from Hettie, and something that I thought needed to be said.
Absolutely. And it's all about that engagement, the community. You know, you do that with Action, with RAG, with all of the sections. It's about how you vibe with the community, I guess. And that's the thing about LSU, is you do manage to create such a wonderful community here. You know, it might be a bit wet to say, but
no, definitely.
after all, you will find your kind of home away from home and everything. It's all very sweet. But yeah, like I say, so we've had Hettie, we've had Jodie, all both rerunning for their roles. And of course Ron as the alternative. So you can, like I say, join in on the elections, hashtag LSU elections on Twitter, and make sure that you vote.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I think we're about ready to hand over now.
Yes, Lucy, hi. Thank you.
That was very insightful. Thank you for all your comments and the investigation into the soapbox. We're next going to be watching Seth Johnson, the Society's candidate, be grilled by Josh. But first, we're just going to have a little look at who he is.
I'm Seth, I'm running for Society's chair.
Why are you running in the election?
Because I love my section and I want to make it the best it can be. So I ran in the Exec election last year and I didn't get Rond, which was quite nice, but I also ended up with 200 votes and I didn't win, which, you know, that is what it is. But at the same time, I've kind of never had that thing of, hey, 200 people each supporting you right now. And even though I lost, it was really heartwarming to know that there were people out there who'd been like, hey, you would do a good job. And it was really nice. You should vote for me because I know my stuff. I've been part of the section my entire time at university. And I've got solid plans that are grounded in work with the rest of the team over the past 2 years.
Okay, so societies, they cover about 113 different societies in total, but here's a short clip for you explaining what societies do.
The Societies Chair looks after the entire Society section here at LSU, which is made up of 100 plus student groups. We have 5 sections, which encompass all sorts of activity, and they are academic and careers, culture and faith, performance and arts, outdoor and sport, and general interest. Whether you're looking to play Quidditch or find people from your faith, the Society section is for you. My favourite part of the section and working in this role is to be able to facilitate society activity and events. You have to be a problem solver, and I really love the organisational aspect of it, especially when it comes to our large-scale events like the bazaars and the showcases. And then on kind of a more operational level, when I'm helping out societies try and problem solve, it gets really kind of nitty-gritty and I get to get in and get involved. The Societies Chair is chiefly important because of representation, so you represent the students in the Societies section. That means that you champion their voices and basically defend what they want to do. The reason why the section is so important for students is that it helps you build not only professional skills whilst you're at university outside of academia, but it also means that you can find friends and hopefully find your home away from home.
Well, there we go. We'll hear more about the home away from home now with our interview with Seth Johnson, the Society's candidate. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you, Josh. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. We'll now have your opening statement, please.
Cool. So I'm Seth, I'm running for Society's Chair this year. I've been part of the section my entire time at university, and I want to give back to it as much as possible by being your Society's Chair, championing the student voice and making societies the best it can be this year.
Thank you very much. So we'll go straight into it, and we'll go straight into the issue of memberships. And of course, this has been an issue this year with societies with COVID reducing your numbers, understandably, same as every other section as well. But how will you ensure that societies survive COVID, and those that do survive COVID will be able to actually get back on their feet and get new members?
So we've already started to kind of look at this to some extent, because the simple matter of fact is that society to be a society has to have 15 members and it has to have 2 members of committee. We've just had our elections and there are plenty of committees that aren't filled. And we've been looking at that and we've been saying, okay, hey, we can tide you over for this long with 1 committee member. Those without a committee member, we're having to have a talk to and, you know, see what we can do for them if there are people willing to keep those going. But at the same time, there's not much else we can do with that at the current time. What it is about now is going forward, and for me, going forward, how we can help them is be able to put them back on their feet by pushing a Freshers Bazaar that is a Freshers Bazaar. Last year we didn't really have one. I'd say the public platform wasn't suitable for it, and it distressed a lot of our society's chairs, and potentially us as committee as well were pretty distressed because it just wasn't functioning and it was a subpar experience. I want to go and push a different approach to that online and look at different softwares to use, because there are plenty now out there that we've seen across the pandemic that people have been using, and we need to push our in-person bazaar as well. So obviously it's going to be more difficult because we've got government guidelines that we don't know what they are yet. So we're going to have to stay on our toes with planning this, but in my mind I would love to have in-person bazaar back and safe as well.
I mean, I'll come back to the bazaar in a second. You mentioned there about societies that don't have a committee, or some that only have one member of a committee. Why do you think it is that people no longer want to be on a society's committee?
So it's not wanting to be on a society committee, I would say. I think a lot of people, they look at the role and they don't really know what it is. You talk to a chair and you're talking, and it's hard to describe what you do as a chair sometimes, or it's hard to describe what you do as a vice chair or anything else. You're running a kind of living society right there and then as a student, which can be incredibly difficult, balancing your own studies as well. And as a student, we don't really know what we're doing sometimes. So explaining something to someone else is really hard when we don't know what we're doing with it. I think our students do an amazing job, though, of managing societies. If you look at them from the outside, they are doing incredibly. Some of them don't have that kind of push from the inside, though, that kind of confidence in themselves. And I think that's why we see kind of that loss in committees, why we don't get those people pulling through, because they don't have that belief in themselves. I know our current sabbatical officer, Abby, has been trying to push for this with a better handover culture. She's been developing the processes we've got there to go and basically build on what we've got and start letting people know more what it's all about and kind of giving them that confidence to say, yes, you can do this, but we've still got a long way to go with it, and I want to continue that development.
And going back to that Freshers' Bazaar idea then, and you say that it will be a grand reopening of societies.
Yep.
Can you very quickly say what you think that'll actually look like?
A grand reopening of societies looks like we're going to have to use several days. I don't think stuffing us all into one day is going to work at all, because you're going to have limited capacity and we can't fit necessarily 113 people in there. We already have a limit on the number of committee members that can be on each table, so we're going to have to limit that even further. Bearing in mind we've also got other sections to represent at that bazaar, and we've also got marketing to do. We need to look at how we're doing our Freshers' Bazaar this year across several days instead. Whilst it's going to be more expensive at the current time probably, because we have to go and rent out the hall and everything, in the long run we're going to increase our engagement back, and we're going to get hopefully more people than ever, because people are going to be enthusiastic to come and they're going to want to see everyone back.
And that is important, but there's also the issue of the student groups themselves and these societies folding and not continuing. And it's great to have more students wanting to join societies, but if there's no societies to join, you get a fundamental problem there. So what changes would you do to reduce the number of societies that do shut down at the end of every year and improve their sustainability post-COVID?
So what kind of I've already talked to Abby about, and what she's been working on this year is the Adopt a Society scheme. The only reason this hasn't been pushed through more is because of website issues, but basically we're taking folded societies and we're going and saying, hey, look, this is a thing still, you can come and take it, you can pick it up, and we're pushing it out to people. So if they come to university, because we do get lots of first years who come and they say, hey, I can't find a society, could I start it please? And we're putting them there and we're saying, hey, you can start this, we've got these resources for it, it's been there already, and we can help you with that. We have a development officer on the society's executive committee whose kind of whole role is building up these small societies, and we have them to help there with that. And so that Adopt a Society scheme definitely makes it more sustainable in the long run, because you end up not just throwing away a society and never seeing it again, it comes back through because we know people do want it.
And one way that obviously societies have been developed and have been trying to improve over previous years is the Societies Recognition Scheme,
yes.
Which I think you'd accept has come under a large amount of criticism since its inception, including from yourself.
Yep.
So if you're elected, what would you plan to do with this scheme? What is your vision?
So I've been working on this scheme already. I'm the current Society's Vice Chair, and so I've been working on what we've done as a committee is we've had a project list this year we've been trying out to get committee more involved. This year we've had 3 projects, and that's been the Society's Recognition Scheme, our Constitution, and our awards ceremony. as a committee, we've gone and taken it away and we've been looking at it. We've had a massive notes that we made last year that I was working on last year, Abby was working on our old committee. We've taken those again, we've looked them over and we started redrafting. We wanted to go and put a new version to chairs at the Chair Council we've just done. Unfortunately, you know, we all have deadlines and there's been everything going on. So we haven't got as far as we wanted, but we have come to kind of a scheme that doesn't look anything like it did before with how it functions. And we've repromoted the message with it that it's about helping societies. It's not, so I came in and I saw it as a tier system. I saw it as really negative because I love small societies and big societies. The Tabletop Game Society, when I joined it, was very small, very tight membership. I'm also part of the Video Game Society, which is one of our biggest. And both of them deserve to be equally rewarded for what they do. And that development scheme now is working towards that.
I think going on to this kind of post-COVID idea as well, and how we're going to develop societies post-COVID, we've got a tweet in that's come in from Twitter. It's saying that it's more than likely we're going to be moving to less practical elements of societies now. So how will you help support societies to do activities, not do all their core activities, not necessarily in a practical way, and help them develop over the next few years?
When you say practical, do you mean like in person, physically sitting down? I'd argue against that, to be honest. I think societies are basically drooling to be more physical again, and it is going to slowly come back. It's not going to be complete this year, but it is going to keep coming back. We have more online elements now, but I don't think it's going to be less physical in the future. I think that is coming back slowly.
So how would you help support these societies transition from an online only system to a one which is more physical?
Yeah, and sorry for interrupting you. How I would do that is, what we've got to do is we've got to work with them now over summer to start disseminating information as soon as possible in training. We've already got people coming back with our return to play and return to activity. And we've got our outdoor societies doing that, our sports societies, and we're working with them to see how they can get back already doing things. And now we just need to apply that to other societies and see how they can do it. In Abby's intro video, she says about getting into the nitty-gritty of societies. It's about sitting down with them one-on-one and saying, okay, how can we do this? Like, as an example, Tabletop Game Society is hard to do, right? A lot of interaction. You've got board game pieces, you're getting your sticky mitts all over them. That's a lot of mixing and crossing, breathing on each other. It's not good. But we can think of different ways to do it. So we can go and look at outside spaces, we can look at booking systems for them, and we can look at infrastructure that allows them to do it and return to what they had before, but better and made safe for the current environment that we live in.
Okay, so moving on from COVID now, you're the only candidate in the election at all to actually mention the 1,000 students on the London campus, so congratulations there for remembering that we do have students down there in London. And you say that you want to lay the groundwork for new societies. So what will this look like? Who will be accountable for providing this and maintaining these societies? And also, why is it just the groundwork? Why not more?
Because it's a very big project in the long run, is what I'd start with. But kind of coming back to the first part of how I do it is that, so one of our things right now is we had a Director of Student Opportunities, Liam, who we would kind of use as our contact point for London. Liam is now no longer with us, so we now have to go and be that contact point ourselves, which means there's already more to lay as groundwork there because we don't communicate with London enough. How I would go and do it for societies is that we need to look at how they would function in this environment, right? London is a completely different ballgame to the Loughborough campus. It has more postgraduates, it doesn't have any facilities, and as well, you've got courses that are lasting far shorter times, which means committee turnover is not going to be great. So we have to look at how we're going to do it instead. And one of the ways that I've been looking at that is, so currently our societies, they're basically constituents, they're bound by our constitution and we own them. One of the ways that we can look at in London is going and not having that basically. They're associate groups instead, and whilst we can help them with pieces, we act more as an advisory board, more as than more than a completely contained company, and it makes it more achievable in the long run as well. We only have one staff member currently at London, and if we suddenly have, say, even 10 societies crop up that they have to manage, it's just going to crumble before it even starts. So we have to go and lay out how they can communicate with us easily, how we can talk to London and advise them, and how we can get that all started.
You also mentioned that you want better connections between societies and the sections here in Loughborough as well. So what would these connections look like, briefly?
So for me, it's putting infrastructure in place that allows us to communicate early on. So I've talked to our current sabbatical, and one of the things we think is that we kind of come on the bus too late. We hear about things like, let's say, if I get the name wrong here, it's not going to be great, Project Jingle Bell. We heard about it too late on. If we were there in the first starting kind of organisation of it, we can help out more. And Abby and Jodie have even talked about this before in having a big showcase where they can basically put both on at the same time. And that's really great. But because nobody's talking to each other from the start, there's nothing at the end. So what I want to see is basically having those sections come together more, talking about what they're doing and seeing how we can integrate ourselves together.
I think one of the core things which, in ways that you could work with other sections in the union is with your sports societies. And we've got a question here on Twitter from James Greer, who's the current sport executive officer, saying there are 18 societies currently associated with sport and sporting activity inside a society. So, and he asked, should the responsibility really be under societies, or should they move under the AU?
That's a good question. It's a question societies themselves ask, because we see societies who do go and move from societies to AU instead. And I think what defines it for me is that AU offer quite a competitive deal at times, and there are plenty of societies who set up and they just want to be very casual. AU definitely has kind of that casual side of play, but when it's all casual, I don't think it offers what AU wants, and that's where we come in, and that's where we have our sports societies.
So moving on to back on your manifesto again, you mentioned the current LSU building redevelopment,
Yes.
and you say that section voices are being ignored.
Yes.
What do you suggest the union does instead?
In what regard here, sorry?
With the building
listening?
redevelopment. You said that the section voices are being ignored in regards to the building redevelopment. So as a voice from a section, what do you suggest that LSU does instead?
What I suggest that LSU does instead is it begins to look at what the sections wanted, because I know these section heads already have said what they kind of need from it and what they want to maintain, and it's not for me to go and say now what it should be.
So what do societies need then? What do societies need out of this new building?
What I'd love from societies to need is we need active space that people can use, because what we're always looking for is more and more places for societies to be there. And what we always want as well is to show off our societies. They do amazing things and they don't get to show it off all that often. We have our winter showcase, we have things like refreshers, but we don't get to see them past that. We want a space where we can show off these people, where they can do their activity, and it's less of a hassle to go through than going through uni rooms.
And in terms of this student voice thing and having student voices represented in LSU, how do you think that society's voices should be represented within the wider Students' Union?
So I think, in my mind, currently how it works is the section chair is that voice. I think it champions what they're saying, and I think what it needs is to kind of hustle and bustle its way back into kind of where the executive officers are sitting. I mean, there's been plenty of talk on the show already about how there's some disconnect at times this year between the section chairs and the executive officers. And I think it's about getting those back to an equal place and on a talking ground, because they're both needed to represent the entire student populace. If one's down from the other, it just doesn't work.
Well, the thing is, and you mentioned the society's chair there, and the exec elections, which are going on now, are a vital part of developing these new ideas for the sections and getting new voices as part of the executive team. But in the last 4 or so years, society has been uncontested every year. Is this a kind of a damning statement on the section? Why aren't more people running for these roles to have their voices heard?
Honestly, it's a good question, Josh. I know plenty of people in the section who I think would also do a good job of this. They have big ideas and they have big things that they say. We get loads of people coming to us with these ideas, with what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. And I don't know if I have the answer for why I'm uncontested, to be honest. I think maybe it's just because we don't get these people involved enough at our higher section. Maybe we're failing there somewhere. Maybe there's a track that we can lay better that lets people through to say, hello, here we are in societies.
So how would you get a member of a society or a member of a society's committee, how would you encourage them to move up through the ranks, become on society's exec, and maybe even run for the role in the future?
To me, to me, it's continuing to concentrate on Abby's handover, because you need people in those committees first. We then run our chairs councils where we kind of come together and all our chairs are there and we use it for things like votes, disseminating information, etc., etc. And I think we somehow need to push it there more. We need more of a connection there, and it's a hard thing to do. Like, you're connecting two human beings with two different ideas. Like, one's a student who's just here for their society, it's their hobby and interest, and the other's sitting in the students' union where they're trying to affect all of those societies at once. And it's a very hard mindset to connect. But I think we can do it, and we can go and connect with those people, because we do it all the time. And I want to see more of that.
And in terms of the exec team as well, and there's been a lot of talk about potential restructures of the exec team and changing what that looks like, and obviously society's future relationship with the exec team could therefore change. And what do you think, and how do you think society should sit in a new executive restructure, and how would you ensure that this doesn't negatively affect your members?
So to me, in a restructure, I think you need societies to sit at a similar level to where it is right now, where we can focus on our own operations, we can focus on our own things, but we need to have that point, like I was saying before, of being on the level where we can be heard and where we're getting through our voice to whoever's going to manage that upper part. I think one of the nice ideas I've always liked is an activities lead who can connect the sections more and the executive officers, because I think that pathway would be quite nice, but I don't know if that will come. For me, in a future restructure, I would hope to see societies staying as a role, because it's a very large piece to be managed by even just me and the society's admin, and doing away with it would be very bad.
Well, I guess this comes to the fundamental question of, does societies even need a society's chair?
Yeah.
Could you just do with an administrator?
No.
Why is the society's chair so important?
Because so our society's administrator, Julia, would probably have a breakdown if you left her to do all that work. Like, I don't think people see how much we do sometimes, because it is behind closed doors almost. But we sit down, we talk with societies, we help them through with the problems they have. We're dealing with very specific issues at times. It is very nitty-gritty and specific. We have societies who are governed by outside bodies, some who are completely under us. We have those societies who are like Quidditch, they're going around and they're doing Quidditch and talking about Harry Potter. And then we have, say, darts instead, who are going down to the pub and throwing darts. They're two wildly separate things. And to do all that is a massive role. And if you gave it to just an administrator, I don't think they'd be able to do it all by themselves. I think they're definitely not paid enough to do it all by themselves.
I think a lot of this comes down to, therefore, kind of your historical criticism of LSU, and generally your wider discontent with some of the things that LSU does. And you say in your manifesto you wanted to, last year, when you ran for vice president, that you wanted to revitalise how LSU functions.
Yes.
And this year you say that you would even try and move away from being a part of executive collective responsibility. So, and if this kind of area is your primary interest here at LSU, and this is what you're really interested in, why didn't you run for VP again this year?
Well, for one, Josh, I'm scarred from last year, and I say it as a joke, but also because it just taught me that what I was really running for was because I'm so passionate about my section. It's been my home at LSU, and to be frank, I love the people in it. Like, they've made my time at university, and I was in a very dark place last year, and they were some of the only people who recognised me and were able to keep me here, Josh. And I want to do what's right for them. I think maybe I could make that change from vice chair, but also someone has to be fighting in this corner for societies, and I want to be that person because they deserve so much more.
So I guess when it comes down to that then, do you think, and finally, do you think that your desire for wider change within LSU will get in the way of improving the societies section and caring for the members that you have?
No, because if you improve LSU, you're improving societies, because societies are part of LSU. It's that simple.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much. That's Seth Johnson, running for Societies Chair this year. Seth, your closing statement.
Thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find all my social medias on Facebook. It's Seth the Societies. You can read my manifesto at lsu.co.uk/exec elections. Please vote for me when voting opens. I really want to do what's best for the section.
Well, there we go. That's the penultimate interview of the afternoon. It's Enterprise up next, and we'll go back to you, Danny and Sophie. Hope you're well.
Hi, so we're back with Vice President Fajiro. So we're just going to have a little rundown about what we just saw. So with societies then, what societies are you in? Do you have a favourite society?
Well, I recently got into climbing, so I guess mountaineering would be near the top, definitely. Hot air balloon, I feel like it's a really interesting thing to do. So yeah, there are a few that I think I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Well, how did you find the whole interview go as a whole?
Well, I think it went really well. I think Seth, as an individual, is definitely very passionate, very knowledgeable about his section. I think that definitely shone through. I think he wasn't afraid to put forward both proposals, which I really enjoyed to see. So I thought it was another strong interview today.
Awesome. And also, the union is having a makeover. How do you think societies can utilise this makeover to benefit them the most?
Well, I think a big part of the conversation around what we want to do with the space was making better use, more effective and efficient use of our space. So with a lot of the renovations, we're going to open up a lot more storage spaces, which societies can come in and use. Additionally, the seating areas in the union is being expanded significantly. Societies will be able to come in and spend a lot more time with friends and colleagues. And we're hoping that they're really able to utilize not only the new storage space, but the new space for them just to be together for the society members.
Yes, definitely.
Well, Seth and Josh actually mentioned the London campus a few times. So how do societies work there? Like, what's going on with the London campus? Because we're all obviously based here in Loughborough.
Yes, of course. And London is a very interesting sort of topic because it's talked about every single year. And I think once again, it's proposals like Seth has brought forward where we're sort of strengthening communication lines with them and ensuring that there's some sort of resource to support students there in exploring their interests and their ideas. I think as we continue to do that more and dedicate more resource and effort into that, I think we'll start to see a lot more engagement in that campus.
Also, and yeah, we've got Enterprise coming up next. How are you? This is now our first contested role. You looking forward to it?
Oh, very much so. I think we have two very interesting candidates running, very exciting, very passionate candidates. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing how they interact with Josh, how they interact with the questions, and how they're able to bring their ideas forward through this interview again.
Amazing. So we're just going to have a little look at the highlights from the interview we just saw.
I'm Seth, I'm running for Societies Chair this year.
But how will you ensure that societies survive COVID, and those that do survive COVID will be able to actually get back on their feet and get new members?
So we've already started to kind of look at this to some extent.
Why do you think it is that people no longer want to be on a societies committee?
So it's not wanting to be on a societies committee, I would say. I think a lot of people, they look at the role and they don't really know what it is.
So how will you help support societies to do activities, do all their core activities, not necessarily in a practical way, and help them develop over the next few years?
When you say practical, do you mean like in person, physically sitting down? I'd argue against that, to be honest. I think societies are basically drooling to be more physical again, and it is going to slowly come back. It's not going to be complete this year, but it is going to keep coming back. We have more online elements now. I don't think it's going to be less physical in the future. It's continuing to concentrate on Abby's handover because you need people in those committees first. We then run our chairs councils where we kind of come together and all our chairs are there. And
how do you think that society's voices should be represented within the wider Students' Union?
So we've got Seth here with us now. How are you feeling? How did that go, do you think?
I'm feeling good. I don't quite know how it went, but fingers crossed everyone found it pretty good.
No, I think you did really well.
Yes, well, obviously, this time around, you don't have anyone around you. It's only you running, alongside Ron, obviously. How do you feel it differs this year around?
It's a lot less stressful. It feels a bit lonelier. Last year, you kind of had people in the running with you, and you could talk to them, and they were in the same boat. So it's a bit different there. But also, I've been talking to the other candidates who on the section chairs, and they're lovely as well. So there are still people in it with you.
And also, this year, 100% digital campaigning. You have now done both campaigning, versions of campaigning. How are you finding it?
Digital campaigning is so much less stressful. Not having to go around campus every day has been a lot better for me. It means I've actually got more work done this year as well, which has been quite nice because I've got deadlines at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels a bit more disconnected because I did enjoy getting to talk to people last year because I had a little coffee stand where I'd go and talk to them. So it's harder to engage if people are there or not. Screaming out into the void a bit.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you very much, Seth. We wish you the best of luck for the following, for the next week, and we'll see you at results night.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have Enterprise, and first up, we will show you a clip from Nathan Chan.
So I'm Nathan, and I'm running for the Enterprise chair.
Why are you running in the election?
So I've started a few businesses during my time in Loughborough, and I really appreciated the support from Loughborough Enterprise Network. So I want to give back and help others who are in the same position as I was.
Why should I, as a voter, vote for you in the election?
Because of what I'm going to show you next, and also I really, really want to help out students. So please vote for me.
And as Enterprise is our only contested section chair position, now we're going to have a look at the other candidate, Cameron Glenwright.
Okay, so my name's Cameron, and I'm running to be the Enterprise chair.
Why are you running in this election?
Oh, I think that the Enterprise section's really kind of interested me. Okay, so my name's Cameron, and I'm running to be the Enterprise chair.
Why are you running in this election?
Oh, I think that the Enterprise section's really kind of interested me. I've always been entrepreneurial minded ever since I was young. I used to, design business cards when I was little. I used to create different ideas for companies and things like that. I've always been fascinated with this kind of area. So I think Enterprise is a section that I can relate to quite closely. I think if you take a look at my manifesto, a lot of my points are relevant to a lot of members within the section. We've got one of them is to develop the key soft skills. They're so essential for everyone in Loughborough, everyone in general. These key soft skills are essential for getting into jobs, as well as starting your own company and that sort of area too.
Contested role here with Enterprise. Obviously, this section looking at helping you with businesses, but also with your CV, with your LinkedIn, etc. But we have a short video who will be able to explain it.
So, the Enterprise role. What is it? Well, not only are you part of the LSU as a section, the Enterprise section, but you're also at the first stage of the Loughborough Enterprise Network, the Inspire stage. We cater to students at all levels, no matter if they have any business knowledge or not, to help them start their own business or develop their careers. The importance of that? Well, ask yourself this. What else can you get out of university apart from your degree? And then you go on your experiences meeting other students, meeting like-minded people, and developing your skills outside of your degree. The Enterprise section as a whole is there to allow you to network and meet like-minded people, and also give you the skills to get your dream job, start a business, or follow your passions in any area you want. The best part of the role, there's so many to say in a few words, but working with the Exec and LSU is amazing. Working with companies and speakers is so rewarding. You meet so many inspirational people. And I know it sounds cliche, but the reward you get out of helping students develop their passion, their careers, I said this many times, is absolutely amazing. You see students that have a little project, and next thing you know, in the time you help them, they start making a bit of money on the side, their passions become a grind, and it's so rewarding to see them upskill themselves and get the most out of their experience at Loughborough.
Well, there we go. That's what Enterprise is all about. We have our 2 candidates here in the studio who will delve into their particular plans for Enterprise. We have a little rejig in the studio here, as you might have noticed, to fit our 2 candidates in for this first contested position of the Soapbox so far. Nathan Chan and Cameron Glenwright, welcome to the studio. Nathan, feel free to take your opening statement away.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Nathan and I'm running for the next Enterprise Chair. I have a few key points that I want to go over. Firstly, I want Enterprise to be as social as possible, especially after this year of lockdown and everyone being a bit more antisocial. And the second point would be diversity. So whether you're a fine arts student, a business student or engineer, I want Enterprise to be a place where you could come in and have a chat with us. So if you have a new idea, you could just come in and ask us and we'll try our best to help you achieve your dream. And lastly, if you have a business, you already started a business, it's really important to network and share your story to others. You might inspire other people and maybe you could get a fresh perspective from others as well. So if this sounds exciting to you, please vote for me, Nathan Chan.
And Cameron, your opening statement, please.
Hello, I'm Cameron. I'm a medicinal pharmaceutical chemistry student. Now, looking at my manifesto points, one of them is to develop and improve key soft skills through teamwork-based workshopping and networking. That's incredibly important. These soft skills you use every day. Think about how many times at university you work in a team. Teamwork is a soft skill, so they're incredibly important in your day-to-day lives as well as in employment. Another one of my points is to increase the volunteer numbers that join student groups. That's incredibly important. You know, you're meeting like-minded individuals who have similar interests to you, and you can gain different skills and you can learn and grow from that. Another one is to increase the collaborations with other sections, societies and external companies. These are vital. The advice that you can pick up from different people in companies, CEOs that have set up their own businesses is incredibly useful. These skills that people in societies have, why not utilise them? Why not use those skills? They're very specialised in lots of different areas and that can help you in your employment and enterprise journey. If you want to vote for me, please do. Thank you very much.
There we go. That's the opening statements for the 2 candidates. First to both of you, and you both mentioned increasing student engagement in your manifesto as key points, and it's clear this is a priority to you both. So what methods will you both employ to achieve this goal, Cameron?
Okay, so this is a really vital one in the sense that we want as many students involved in the section as possible. I think one of it is communications with the whole in departments. They're one of the main sort of connection lines to our students. So it's making sure that we're getting them to constantly promote the content that we're putting out, that they're sharing it into the halls groups, and that they're getting it across to the various departments. Obviously, particularly things like business departments might have a focus on the entrepreneurial area. So I think it's about utilising them to get that sort of message out there. I think it's also just making sure that our content is exciting and it's new. We've constantly got to develop and change with how society is. We've just had coronavirus, so it's about making sure that we're really getting in there and getting as many events going as we possibly can to get the students going, whoa, this is exciting, and wanting to get involved within the section.
Nathan?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Cameron about collaboration, but what I wanted to do was to work with the welfare and social chair as well. So having a variety of skills and interests. So I want to collaborate with them. And one thing I really wanted to do that is in the plans is to have something like a Sunday market where different societies and people of interest could come in and set up their stores and show off what they do and get a taste of enterprise and collaboration, basically. Yeah.
So, Nathan, you're clearly a very entrepreneurially minded student. Mm-hmm. You run your own business alongside your degree. And although this is fantastic and great experience for the role, it does come up the question about how you'll do your role and these additional roles at the same time. Mm-hmm. So how will you be balancing your own interests alongside the needs of others within your section?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great question. This is something I already thought quite hard about. And I'm fully committed to set aside my business for next year, because what I wanted to do, I chose to run for Enterprise Chair because I'm really passionate about business and helping others, and I am fully prepared to set aside my businesses to help.
And Cameron, in your manifesto, you say that you, again, want to increase collaboration with other LSU sections. And you've previously been the media chair here in LSU. What have you done in this role to increase collaborations?
Yeah, so we actually did a collaboration with Enterprise. We did kind of a photography thing where we were doing headshots and that sort of thing. That was a collaboration that we did. I think we've also, we've done filming projects earlier on in the year. Action, we're doing Good Does You Good, and I was helping them film different videos for that. So it's about, we also do ones with sport as well, covering different live shows and that sort of thing. So there's all sorts of collaborations that go on between our section and the other sections, and I think Enterprise should do the same too. We've seen this year, we've seen, for example, RAG, Tender Challenge, raising money in that sense through Enterprise, as well as the project that they did with us. But I think we can expand that further, expand it out to societies. We've done collaborations with companies, Enterprise, but I think we could do more. I went along to one of the events where it was the Locate Me CEO that came along, and he said some incredibly inspiring things and some really useful information that the students could use. And I think more of that, the more of that we do, the better.
I guess following on from that, and I think this is probably what the people at home want to know the most, is you are currently the media chair.
Yes.
Why Enterprise? Why is the Enterprise chair the role you're going for this year?
So I think that every single section within the union, there is some sort of entrepreneurial skill to them. When you're an entrepreneur, when you're wanting to be employable, you've got to have all sorts of different skills. I think media, in terms of being able to kind of market yourself, that sort of thing is a skill in terms of being an entrepreneur. I think I could quite closely relate to it with being involved in media, with getting excited when it comes to designing graphics and marketing aspects. I think that's always made me quite entrepreneurial minded. I think I mentioned in my manifesto about designing business cards when I was younger. There's a link there between the two that I can quite clearly make. And it's exciting being able to run your own company, being the boss of your own company. How exciting is that? It's really, really exciting.
And going on from that idea of collaborations, which obviously I've mentioned that you've mentioned, and obviously you also mentioned as well, Nathan, in your manifesto. I've got a question here from Twitter from Natalie Doyle, your current collaborations officer at Enterprise, saying that you both mentioned collaborations in your manifesto, but she's this year's officer, and she'd be very keen to know what you'd be doing differently from what she's done this year in the role. Nathan?
So obviously this year has been very difficult in terms of collaborating in person. What I really wanted to bring next year is a lot of in-person activity, granted that restriction eases. So as I've proposed earlier, the Sunday market and having networking events and brainstorming events with societies and welfare, because I think everyone could gain a lot from a diverse background and sets of skills. Yeah.
And Cameron, what do you think has been going wrong this year with collaborations and needs to be improved?
So I think we've had collaborations going on. We've had CEOs and companies coming in doing events. We've had networking events. We've had the collaboration with different sections. But I think, as you say, Nathan, it's been a struggle. We've had coronavirus, and I don't think it's necessarily about doing anything crazy different. But I think it is about making sure that in-person activity is happening where it can do, and if that is possible. And it's just getting the students excited again. If we can bring more CEOs from external companies in, if we can bring more societies in to do talks. The societies have so many skills. If we can bring them in to do collaborations with them, I think that'd be incredibly important. I haven't seen as many society collaborations this year. I think we could do more next year.
We've also got a question from Manny, the current Enterprise chair. We'll have a video from him later. But he sent in this question to us beforehand and said some of the qualities you'll benefit from in the role are being flexible and dynamic as you work with students as well as businesses and external stakeholders. So how are you going to manage this fast-paced environment? Cameron, you first.
Ooh, I think that's a really good question. I think it's about planning things in advance where you can. If you plan lots of things in advance, then when it comes to it and you have other things happen that are kind of last minute, then because you've planned everything else around it, they're not too much of a shock and it doesn't get on top of you. So I think it's just making sure that you have a clear plan to start off with, that you've planned the year, you know what events are going to happen at what time, what's going to go on, and then if something hits you, although it's still going to be quite challenging to balance that, you've got the rest of everything else balanced, so you can focus on those particular areas.
How about you, Nathan?
So I definitely agree with planning, but so what I saw last year with my business was that COVID just hit, and I scrambled and I had to think of new ways to adapt my business. So I think being able to innovate and adapt is so key. I'm ready to handle any problems that are thrown at me. But again, planning is really important, but also being able to adapt as well.
And one major thing that Enterprise doesn't have, which is quite different to some other sections, is any kind of membership system. And Manny, in his manifesto last year, mentioned that he wanted to bring in a membership system, and that previous candidates have obviously proposed this. But do you believe, as candidates, that Enterprise should raise its own money in this way and have a membership system of its own? If not, why not? Nathan?
Okay. So I personally think that Enterprise should be free, because I want as many people to be able to enjoy the benefits of Enterprise. And we could get our money from other places, such as the Sunday market, where we could get local businesses pay for stands and increase a revenue stream. It's really important for Enterprise to be as open and welcoming as possible. So I think the membership would just be a non-necessary barrier of entry.
And what about you, Cameron? Obviously, you've led a section which has a membership system.
Yes.
Do you think they should be transferred to Enterprise?
I think the thing with Enterprise is you've got to think about the employability aspect as well. You know, it might be called Enterprise, but it's not just about startups. It's about people being employable too, and that needs to be accessible to everyone. Everyone should have, be able to access workshops and training that allow you to become more employable and gain those skills. And I think if you had a paid membership, it might make that quite hard to access. I know that there's been a form of membership that's been put in this year. It's a free membership. You kind of just click it on the website and it puts you on their system, which I think is useful because you can track who the volunteers in your section are, who the students are that are getting involved, and you can see engagement and how it's improving year on year. So I think that's important, but I don't think that we should have a cost-based membership.
Another thing which has been sent to us over the last few days from the public is about ethical environmental values, and E&E has kind of traditionally been moved inside of the Enterprise section, with the Green P obviously still surviving from that. So should this remain this way, or should Enterprise, should ethical environmental things come out of Enterprise and become its own section here at the Union?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think in the way that it works within Enterprise with Green P, for example, because they are selling, what would be the term, sort of environmentally sustainable items, that sort of thing. I think it comes into Enterprise that they're selling an item. I think there's different areas in it. If you look at, for example, Freak Reps and Halls, obviously they have the focus on environmental areas, and whether there should be a section related to that is an important question. I think for the moment they should stay within the section, because I think it provides a comfortable environment for them to thrive in and get support from. But I think in future it's something that we could look at. It's a big thing, and it's becoming a bigger thing now. We had Greta Thunberg and everything that was going on there with climate change and that sort of. It's becoming bigger in the world, and people are clocking onto it more. It's more important. So I think at some point in the future, I think that could definitely happen. But I think at the moment they work quite well sat within our section.
Not sure Greta Thunberg would agree with you there that Enterprise that it should stay on its own. But there we go. What do you think, Nathan?
So I agree with Cameron in the fact that they should be together still, because it really ties in with enterprising, not only with the startup attitude. Also, I would love to work with them in the section. So I might be a bit biased, but I definitely want Enterprise to be green. Yeah. So definitely I want, yeah. But however, if there's demand, it could also be a section. But next year I would love to work with them as a section together.
We'll make sure to get in contact with Greta and ask her opinion as well before the end of the weekend. You also mentioned, Nathan, in your manifesto, this collaboration thing, and I go back to it again because it features so heavily in both of your manifestos. Yeah. You say that you want to increase teamwork and collaboration to connect students with businesses through collaborative projects and create a win-win situation between them and businesses. Yeah. What do you mean by this? So
this goes back to the brainstorming and networking. What I did with a company that was run by an alumni called House Hack, which was challenges set by companies where students could participate and solve their day-to-day business problems. I absolutely think that is a great idea, and I really want to implement that to the enterprise section. So that's kind of the base idea of it, but I would be more than happy to expand that in the future. So is Enterprise not a collaborative space then at the moment? Is it not conducive collaboration currently? It's very collaborative, but I will have to say COVID did hit enterprise quite a bit, but I think next year we'll bring back networking and all the brainstorming, and it would be as collaborative as ever.
So how will you lead the section out of coronavirus?
Well, we will have to, unfortunately, we will have to wait until the further guidelines, so the COVID restrictions. But once the guidelines is open, I would love to have events. So the events and the networking will be the start, and yeah.
And Cameron, in your manifesto, you say that you want to establish teamwork-based workshops and networking. What will these actually entail these workshops?
So I think workshops can happen in different ways, and the teamwork-based area can come in with all different aspects. In terms of running a workshop, you can involve teamwork in any activity that you do. We could have a workshop with generating business ideas, for example, and within that we could put people in teams and have them as a team develop a business idea as an example of that. It's also partially kind of fading into the soft skills approach, in the sense that if you're developing teamwork, you're developing social skills and communication skills, then you're developing those soft skills as well. So they kind of work quite well together and improve each other at the same time in that sense.
And in that sense, who will then deliver these sections? The union is strapped for resources, as we know, and how are we going to have the ability to deliver these sessions, and who are they targeted at, and what do you hope they'll actually achieve?
Well, I'd like to see some workshops delivered with external companies, collaborations with them. I think that's incredibly important. We can provide as much advice as we can, but the experience of companies that have been running for years is vital, and it's really useful. So I think if we could get some workshops with external companies where they can help out in that sense, that'd be great. I'd happily, if I was in the chair position, if I ended up getting that role, come along to some of those, but I also understand that the role is stretched. There's lots of different responsibilities in that role. So that's a delegation task, and it's about looking at members of the committee and if some of them would be, comfortable running some of those workshops. But it's a collaboration thing again. The more that you can collaborate, the more that you can kind of delegate in that sense, the more that you can do. And the more informative the workshops become. If we could do some workshops with some societies, for example, we could bring skills into those workshops for them to gain too. So I think there's lots of people who can help to run those workshops.
Okay, then I did mention earlier that we had a video question from Emmanuel, and we're going to play that now for you. Go ahead.
Guys, it's Manny and Emma from Enterprise. The questions we had for you are: what's the biggest change you want to see in Enterprise?
And why do you want to see these going forward?
Best of luck, guys, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
There we go. Nathan, we'll go to you first.
So one of the biggest change I want to make is to make Enterprise as palatable and fresh as possible. So that would include changing the social media strategy for that. Just a bit of a background, I am currently also running a social media company, and I would be more than happy to help out Enterprise. For example, what I want to do is have social media takeovers from local entrepreneurs, such as Locate Me. That would be awesome. Just a day in the life of what an entrepreneur does, or we could go slightly bigger into the bigger company, but we will have to see about that. But yeah.
So something that I like to see is, I think the word enterprise makes people think that what we do is startups. That's what a lot of people think. So I think it's about getting a clear communication across to students that we're not just startups, that we help out students with employability skills as well. Those vital skills that reach out, I think, to a wider student population. There are students that definitely want to set up their own companies, but that doesn't cover every student. It doesn't cater for everyone. If we can make it more clear that we help out with employability as well, then it reaches out further, and it can help more and more people. And that's through events, it's through the whole in departments communication. There's all sorts of different ways that we can get that message across.
Okay then, so we now have a question from former union president Rahul Matheson, who is commenting here this evening from Twitter, saying that previous critics have assigned the section simply the role of being a signpost to university resources. So what role should Enterprise really play in developing student innovation and development? Nathan, we'll go with you.
So one thing I want to make clear of is that Enterprise also, So Enterprise also means self-development. and personal development. And I want enterprise to not only include innovation, but also development of skills. And I definitely think it's such a key role in any person's development. Yeah, so it should be inclusive to any student, so any student could just come in and try to improve their skills, such as marketing or speaking in front of camera, which I must admit I'm not the best at yet. Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get there. Cameron, do you think the section is simply a signpost to university resources?
No, I think the thing with enterprise is a community as well. You know, it's a community of individuals who like the idea of developing a business, who like the idea of gaining those skills, who like the idea of meeting people with like-minded ideas and that sort of thing. I think that's the difference. That's what we are. We're a community, as well as, you know, being a resource to help people gain these skills. We are a community of people, and I think that's how we differ. You know, we do things like, for example, the Santander Fund. You know, you could say that that's signposting again. But again, that's a separate thing to, for example, what Loughborough Enterprise Network might put forward. So I think what we bring is a community of people, and some people as well feel more comfortable approaching a union. You know, it depends who that person is. They might be more involved in the union, and therefore it's an easier transition for them to move to enterprise, for example, rather than branching out to a university resource, that sort of thing.
Fair enough. We've got another question from a former enterprise chair, Joshua Hope. With the difficulties over the last year with coronavirus, how do you intend to help students' personal development prepare them for the world of the future? And where do you see the opportunity for growth in the section post-COVID-19? Cameron, we'll go with you first.
So I think it's kind of similar to what we've been saying so far. You know, we'd like to see in-person events. You know, it's those social skills that you gain from those in-person events. You know, apart from the fact that you might have a speaker there that's giving incredible advice and knowledge and passing that on, it's the other skills that you gain by going along in person to an event and communication with other people. It's also the people that you meet and networking and that sort of group of people around you that you surround yourself with that can help you in future. So I think it's about bringing that in after COVID as long as we can, and making sure that we push that as much as we can, getting people along to events where possible. In terms of where I see the growth going, as the second kind of part of the question, I think it's just branching out further, branching out to more students, going into that society element, as I was saying earlier. If we can do that, we can bring more skills into enterprise, and we can also get more students involved and more interested in the section.
Nathan, where do you think the opportunity for growth is?
So I completely wholeheartedly agree with Cameron here. In terms of collaborating with societies and spreading enterprise as widely as possible, but also other than personal networking, which we desperately need after COVID, one thing I really want to do is to help students build their own personal brand. So whether that's LinkedIn or social media, I think it's increasingly important for us nowadays to really build our own personal brand. It's so important, especially with COVID. Something like COVID just accelerated the whole process.
I'm going to switch it up now a little bit and talk about postgraduates, because this is something that neither of you have mentioned in your manifesto, the London campus. And the London campus is obviously has no LSU representation in terms of enterprise, but is a hugely entrepreneurial space and has a huge number of things built and geared towards enterprise. So you both mentioned collaborations, for example, but neither of you mentioned this collaboration with London. So what would you and how would you collaborate with London to help develop the LSU entrepreneurial scene down there in the capital? Nathan?
So I just want to say I am absolutely honoured to have been to Loughborough, London twice with my Year in Enterprise programme and the IDEA programme. The campus space is absolutely amazing, and they're right next to some really good incubator spaces. So I would definitely propose trips to London to see how startups are working, and just a general environment, and also I think also networking events with them and brainstorming events with them is really key as well.
Cameron, how would you work with enterprise in London?
So I think it's a brilliant thing that you've just said about trips, because it's about that collaborative aspect again. I think one thing that we can take from this year is, we've done a lot of online meetings, a lot of things through Zoom, a lot of things through Teams and all that. And as much as we want to move away from that and do in-person events, if we want to keep up a constant collaboration, a way to do that is to have online events with them. By doing that sort of thing, it means that we don't, it's not about travelling, it's not about that sort of thing. We can do them whenever and we can do them all the time, and it can keep up that constant connection with the campus down there. So I think as much as COVID has been a sad thing, I think there's also things that we can learn from it and things that we can progress forward using what we've learned from COVID as well.
And continuing with this kind of theme of the role of the enterprise chair and where it should go, there's been much talk of another restructure in the Students' Union. What do you see Enterprise's future relationship being with the exec team under a new structure? Do you think that it will benefit Enterprise or push Enterprise down? And how will you help to ensure that it won't negatively impact your volunteers?
I think with Enterprise being a pillar of the university, I think it is important that it has representation within the Students' Union. I think it is an incredibly vital role. It does serve a purpose to students. Students come to university to gain skills for employment in the future, and therefore Enterprise seems like an incredible vital area that you should always have. In terms of where it sits, I think it should always sit on the executive, because I think in that sense it is a pillar of the university. I want to clarify what I mean by executive there, because I know there is sometimes a bit of confusion that can surround that. Obviously currently it's sat as a section chair. There's the potential for future that it could become a full exec role, I guess. But that's something that we'd have to see what would happen with that. But I think it is a pillar of the university. It is an essential part of coming to university, and therefore I think, yes, it should stay around. It should definitely stay represented by the Students' Union.
How will you ensure that a restructure wouldn't negatively impact Enterprise, Nathan?
So I definitely agree that Enterprise is such a vital role for employability and just development, so I don't see Enterprise going anywhere. But I actually just learned about the Enterprise being exclusive. Yeah, but with that just means that Enterprise could have a bit more exposure and a bit more power, and I see that as a good thing. Yeah, so I could only hope for good things for Enterprise for next year.
And in previous years, when asked on the Soapbox, presidential candidates have often said that if they had to remove one paid sabbatical role, then it would be Enterprise, that it's the least important role on the officer team, and it's the least important role in the paid sabbatical team. Do you agree with that and agree that Enterprise is the least important role?
I disagree, because I think the skills that you gain in Enterprise are so vital. One of my, I'm going to go back to my manifesto again, one of the manifesto points is soft skills. Soft skills are not just useful within employment, they're not just useful as an entrepreneur, they're day-to-day skills that we use all the time. If you can communicate with people, then you can learn more and you can develop more as a person. So I think that the skills that we provide and the opportunities we provide to meet these incredible people who have started their own companies, but also just inspiring people that can inspire students, whether that's just in their degree, never mind creating their own business, just inspiring them within their degree. I think it is absolutely vital as a role, and I think it should always stay and it should not go.
And finally, Nathan, do you agree?
Completely disagree, because so Enterprise is so important, as I said in the last point, that I don't see it going anywhere, because not only does it benefit students, but it benefits everyone in terms of personal development. For example, I have been stuck in lockdown. Everyone has been stuck in lockdown for the last year, and I'm sure everyone has tried to develop themselves one way or another. Whereas that, for example, learning how to take videos or going for runs or learning how to knit, it's just all part of I think that's all part of enterprising. Personal development is so key, so I don't see it going anywhere.
Well, there we go. That is the Enterprise debate between these two candidates done. We'll now go on to the closing statements. As we started with Nathan first, we'll start with you this time, Cameron.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for watching. Thank you very much for tuning in and listening to what me and Nathan have to say. Please do go and look further into our manifestos after today, and please do have a think about some of the questions that we've answered today. It's incredibly important, this sort of thing. It's incredibly important about the skills that Enterprise as a section provides, and I'm sure you agree as well. Thank you very much for listening in. I've been Cameron, and if you like what I've been saying today, then please do vote for me.
And Nathan, your closing statement, please.
So thank you for listening, and if you vote for me, I'll work my absolute hardest next year to help you achieve your dream. So again, my name is Nathan. Thank you.
Well, there we go. That is the final debate of the day today. We'll be back with more tomorrow, but we're not finished just yet. We're going to go and head down to Sophie and Danny, where they have Manny, the current Enterprise Chair, with them. There you go.
Yes, we are here with the current Enterprise Chair, Manuel,
Hello.
or Manny. You've got the first question, I think.
Yes. Well, so how do you think that went? First contested
Amazing.
Soapbox. How do you think they did?
I think they're both really strong candidates. I love seeing their passion for the job. They clearly have a lot of entrepreneurial spirit in them, which is amazing as well. And, oh, we have a bit of noise. But yeah, I was saying both their entrepreneurial spirits came through, and yeah, I'm just happy to see how passionate they are and what they want to bring in the section.
Nice.
How would you like the candidates, whoever is successful, to continue the work that you've been doing this year?
Oof, lovely question. There's a few things that I would like them to continue, and I think developing and really furthering the relation with LEN, the Loughborough Enterprise Network, that journey of LEN is something that I'm really proud of, and I want them to continue that work, making sure that we interact with as many students through LEN. Obviously, our departments and halls are really important. This year, Enterprise and Stash Reps, it's the first year that they run for a whole year, and it's been amazing.
Yeah.
I want them to continue that. But also something important to me was trying to interact and engage with students from diverse backgrounds, minority backgrounds. It'd be amazing to see them further in that as well, and making sure Enterprise is as engaging for students of all communities. So yes.
Well, talking about engaging, obviously this year everything's gone 100% digital.
Yeah.
How would you like to see Enterprise push their digital front?
Oh, wow. We started this year. I think one thing that I tapped into is videos. It's amazing I think it allows that personal connection. But it will also be awesome to see Enterprise and other sections tap in other social medias. There's obviously the Instagram, the LinkedIn. It will be amazing to see them interact with students in different platforms, using both videos and also fun content. We need to remember it's about making the student experience better, and sometimes having fun content that students can engage with is good for the section. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yes, it is.
Fantastic.
Thank you
so much, Manny. I think we've got some highlights from that interview.
Please vote for me, Nathan Chan.
If you want to vote for me, please do. Thank you very much. So this is a really vital one in the sense that we want as many students involved in the section as possible, making sure that we're really getting in there and getting as many events going as we possibly can to get the students going, whoa, this is exciting.
So I totally agree with Cameron about collaboration, but what I wanted to do was to work with the welfare and social chair as well, get a taste of enterprise and collaboration, basically.
You run your own business alongside your degree.
I chose to run for Enterprise Chair because I'm really passionate about business and helping others, and I am fully prepared to set aside my businesses to help.
There's all sorts of collaborations that go on between our section and the other sections, and I think Enterprise should do the same too, and I think we can expand that further. I think more of that, the more of that we do, the better. I think that every single section within the union, there is some sort of entrepreneurial skill to them. It's exciting being able to run your own company, being the boss of your own company. How exciting is that?
What I really wanted to bring next year is a lot of in-person activity, granted that restriction eases. The Sunday market and having networking events and brainstorming events.
As you say, Nathan, it's been a struggle. We've had coronavirus. I haven't seen as many society collaborations this year. I think we could do more next year.
We've also got a question from Manny, the current Enterprise Chair. We'll have a video from him later. But he sent in this question to us beforehand and said some of the qualities you'll benefit from in the role are being flexible and dynamic as you work with students as well as businesses and external stakeholders. So how are you going to manage this fast-paced environment?
I think it's about planning things in advance where you can.
Being able to innovate and adapt is so key.
But do you believe, as candidates, that Enterprise should raise its own money in this way and have a membership system of its own?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think that we should have a cost-based membership.
Enterprise should be free.
So we're just here having a post-Soapbox chat with Nathan. How do you think that went?
Firstly, I'm still shaking from the interview. Yeah, that was the first time I've done something like that. So I think it went as well as it could have been.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. And obviously you've got Cameron, but your main focus this week, I guess, will be on your social media. How's that going for you? What do you have planned or coming up for us?
Well, when I heard that everyone is doing a music video, I decided to do something different. But we'll see. I'll keep it a secret for now.
All right, you'll keep us on our toes there. Yes, music videos is obviously one of the fun ones that everyone does, isn't it?
I'll try to keep it fun, but without the music part.
Fair enough. Well, thank you so much. You did amazingly today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you throughout the week and then at results night. Thank you very much.
Cool.
And then also coming on, we have Cameron Glenwright. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How did it go for you?
It was a really good experience. I think they're always useful experiences, being challenged on your ideas, and I really enjoyed it. It was really good.
I've got to ask, you didn't fancy running for media chair?
No, I thought I'd changed it up a little bit this year. You know,
okay.
I think that, as I said in there, you know, the skills that we are learning from all these different aspects are really certainly applicable to enterprise. So I thought I would.
Yeah, well, obviously you still want to stick around the Loughborough family then, I guess, for the next year. And same thing for you. What do you have planned for the next week then? What can you tell us, Seth?
I've had a great time. I love designing graphics, all that sort of thing. It's been really fun. So I think for me next, you might see some sort of music video that might be coming out soon.
Really?
Yeah. We'll wait and see. Will
it be are we going off the same music video as last year? Will it be an improvement?
I'm hoping it's an improvement. I've hopefully gained some media skills over this time, so hopefully it's a little bit better. But it was great fun to do.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Cameron. It's a pleasure, and as well, good luck throughout the week, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So it's been a very interesting show. I've really liked seeing all the candidates' answers. Josh Gray's definitely, been up to his usual standard of asking them everything we want to know.
Yeah, who was not letting any of them off the hook this year, making sure that, each of them, really get the truth out. So we have a video coming up, though, now, showing you how the voting system works and informing you exactly what will happen when it comes to results night.
So, what is STV? STV stands for Single Transferable Vote and is the voting system that the exec elections will be working under. Normally in elections you'd vote under a first-past-the-post system for an individual candidate by putting an X by their name. The exec election works on the STV system, so when you log into lsu.co.uk/exec elections, you will be presented with a list of candidates running for each role. You can rank as many or as few candidates as you wish. Under the first-past-the-post system, the candidate with the most votes wins, even if all the other candidates' votes combined are more than 50%. However, under STV, it all starts with a quota. The quota is 50% of the total votes cast plus 1. If no candidate reaches the quota in the first round, then the least popular candidate is eliminated, and their votes are redistributed based on their voters' second choices. This process will continue until the candidate reaches the quota and is elected. Although remember, RON, which stands for Reopen the Nominations, is also an option. Voting opens on 9 AM Tuesday, the 11th of May, and be sure to follow LSU Media on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for all our exec elections coverage.
Brilliant. So that's how the voting system works. And we're just kind of having a little chat now, aren't we, about how this day's been. It's day one of the Soapbox. We've got another day to go, but today's been very interesting, seeing all the section chairs.
Yes, very interesting. Obviously, we have Hettie and Jodie rerunning for their sections. We have Seth Johnson running for societies, and then we had our first competitive, I guess, debate between Cameron and Nathan. All very interesting, all really nice to finally hear them expand a bit on their manifesto points. And I mean, Josh Gray back in the seat for the third time. How do you think he did?
Well, I mean, Josh is a friend of mine, so I'm not going to criticise him. Obviously,
you could grill him a little bit.
No, I think he did brilliantly as usual. I could not be doing what he does. I don't think I could find that many criticisms about people. I do like to be a nice person. Not that I'm saying Josh isn't a nice person, but he's a bit more savage than me, I like to think. I think what's been really interesting this time is that a few of candidates who are running uncontested have said they'd prefer to be contested. I wasn't expecting that.
Yes, no, I mean, obviously I can understand that though, because obviously us together, we can work off each other, but if you're by yourself, that is a lot more stressful and a lot more nerve-wracking, I guess, because the limelight's purely on you, and not everyone wants that, I guess.
No, not like us presenting, who clearly just crave attention.
Clearly we do. So tomorrow we have sports, welfare, education, vice president and president coming up.
The big one.
All apart from sports is contested. So we're having it a little bit different, that they're all going to be fighting against each other, I guess, to get this position.
Yeah, I think you can see the timings there. So for when you want to tune in and make sure that you follow them on social media so that you know what's going on, and see Josh Gray do it all again
back
tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll be back. I think we've got some highlights now of today's interviews, so we're going to go to that.
Hi, I'm Jodie Evans and I'm rerunning to be this year's Action Chair.
My name is Hettie Bawden and I am rerunning to be elected as your RAG Chair for 2021 to 22.
I'm Seth, I'm running for Society's Chair this year.
Please vote for me, Nathan Chan. If you want to vote for me, please do. Thank you very much.
Every member of the executive team has a value and has a role.
What do you think you're going to achieve that, and what kind of pathways you're going to create to getting that engagement back?
I want to challenge my committee next year.
Why do you think it is that people no longer want to be on a society's committee?
So it's not wanting to be on the society committee, I would say. I think a lot of people, they look at the role and they don't really know what it is.
Because in your manifesto you said that you're the candidate of continuity for RAG and not necessarily the candidate for change. But so you're saying that actually RAG does need change and that you're the person who can bring it this year?
It needs change, yes.
I do a fine-tooth comb through our projects. There's some projects that were set up 5-10 years ago and they were absolutely amazing when they were set up.
You have to actually get back on their feet and get new members.
So we've already started to kind of look at this to some extent.
Maybe do a fine-tooth comb through our projects. There's some projects that were set up 5-10 years ago and they were absolutely amazing when they were set up.
But do you believe, as candidates, that Enterprise should direct its own money in this way and have a membership system of its own? But do you believe, as candidates, that Enterprise should direct its own money in this way and have a membership system of its own? But do you believe, as candidates, that Enterprise should direct its own money in this way?
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a pleasure always. Myself and Sophie will be back tomorrow, obviously.
Yeah, we're back to do it all again, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for being my co-host.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
Exec Elections 2021 on LCR. So,
wow,
that was exciting.
That was really exciting. Day one done. And yeah, That was really good. We've got to talk about the societies and
so much to talk about. So let's start with societies. Obviously, Seth was first.
Yeah.
What did we think about Seth? So his main manifesto points are: go big or go home for freshers.
I
Don't
like
know what
that.
that means, but valid.
I like it.
Connect with our sections more than ever and make the shout for societies. What did you reckon to Seth?
I thought Seth, I think he speaks really well. I think he gets his message across very clearly. I think the elephant in the room is that he went for VP last year. Didn't get it, and it's still remembered.
Yeah, still remembered. He was definitely very critical of LSU last year, and I'm very interested to see how that's going to come out this year. You know, if he gets onto the exec team, is a member of the exec, and he's that critical of LSU, I'm interested to see how that's going to go.
Yeah, but it's always nice to have someone taking someone to account.
And
that's I think Seth would do a good job in that role.
Yeah.
Of making sure the LSU are on their toes.
Yeah, he definitely seems like one of the people to hold people to account.
Yeah.
Also, don't forget, there's always Ron.
Always
I am
Ron.
obligated to mention Ron.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of reserve some time to talk about Enterprise, because Enterprise is the main contested role that we had today, obviously, Ron notwithstanding. There was a lot of interesting stuff to come out of that soapbox. We had some really interesting tweets come in. So some very critical tweets. We had Natalie Doyle, hashtag LSU elections. We get it. You want to have stuff in person.
Yes.
They did want to have stuff in person. That is true. Rahul Mathesing, how did those workshops and talks tie into the university's personal best? Amy Woodyard questioning the strengthening communication lines with London. All sorts of things. Very critical tweets coming in with Enterprise. Lots of chat about London, lots of chat about postgrads. Again, this is always an issue that comes up. Are the candidates focused enough on London and postgrads?
Well, that's the thing. It's Seth. I think it was Josh that made the point that Seth is the only one who addressed the London students in his manifesto, and I think, like you said, it's very important that we don't forget we've got London friends down south. So, and they didn't really address it in the Enterprise, I don't think, as well. I would have liked to seen a little bit more about it, but I thought the two did really well in their chats. There wasn't much of a ding dong between the two of them. I was hoping for a little bit of
I thought there might be a fight.
Yeah, I thought they was like, oh, actually Nathan does that or Cameron does that, but they were quite polite to each other, which is always nice. Nice to see. However, it's also good to see a little bit of rivalry.
Oh yeah.
And a little bit, oh well, I do this a little bit better than you, but there was none of that.
Did you have any thoughts about who might have come on top in that soapbox?
In the Enterprise one, I think Nathan, in a way, because of his experience in Enterprise and business at the moment. He runs his own business. I'm not sure. Not sure what business it is.
Not off the top of my head.
Let us know if you do know. But I thought the fact that he runs his own business is a real strong point to have going into this new role. He was talking about the Sunday market. Where people get to show off what they are doing, their own little business. I thought that'd be a really good thing to bring in.
Yeah.
So I like those points. However, Cameron he's been in that chair role before, hasn't he? That media role, which brings a lot of experience itself. Because yes, being an Enterprise person, you've got to bounce off ideas. However, being a chair is a transferable skill that you can bring to a lot of the other chair roles. So I think Cameron, in that sense, has got one on him.
It's hard to judge.
It is.
It's really hard to judge who's going to come out on top in this one. It could be a real coin toss. I think this is going to be a very close race.
I think
in
it
the
is
end.
as well.
But overall, I mean, it was a fantastic debate. I mean, we've got Nathan's main manifesto points here. Teamwork. I think this might be pizzazz. I'm not sure. Teamwork, pizzas, and collaboration is what it says, keeping it fun. Enterprise for everyone with a diversity of skills. And if you have a dream, we can help, which obviously is largely what Enterprise is about in the first place. And then Cameron's main manifesto points. We've got increase volunteer numbers that join student groups. I'd be interested to see how he intends to do that.
Yeah.
As I think that was one of his main points candidates for his media chair role.
Was it?
And
Okay.
obviously then COVID was a thing. So I'd be interested to see how he's planning to approach that. He's also got increasing collaborations with other sections, societies and companies, and developing key soft skills through workshops and networking.
Yeah.
They're very similar candidates and they're very good.
Yeah.
Both of them, I think, would be good in this role.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. It was brought up, the point about the unpaid role. Josh said that it's looking like the enterprise might be the next
one to go.
And Cameron was very strong on his argument there. He disagreed that the enterprise role is just as important as any other departments here in the LSU. So I like the fight there. I think he's invested in it, which would rub off to anyone that is kind of helping.
The passion. We love the passion.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's been a wonderful day overall, and don't forget, like I say, Ron always an option. Niall, did you have any other points to close? You've got more in-depth notes than me.
Yeah, I've really got involved in this one. What else have I got here? Just they talked about this music video.
Oh gosh, I am not excited for this.
Well, I'm a bit lost on this music video.
You don't know?
I don't know this.
Oh
no.
my goodness!
Can you fill
so
me in?
it was a thing that started a few years ago where candidates decided, do you know what? Let's promote myself by putting out music videos, and they were terrible, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So every year the candidates threaten to do music videos, and sometimes they do. And this year, maybe with the digital campaigning, even more effective than normal.
Yeah, definitely. Or a TikTok. We've mentioned it already.
Maybe.
Get the TikToks going. Get a dance going. Get a dance going. Get an enterprise dance going on TikTok.
Another interesting thing that was brought up during that one was the renovation of LSU.
Yeah.
That's in progress. We have been walking around a building site today.
I know. I've come to the studio quite a few times now since the buildings happened. Every time is a different way of getting into the studio because one door's closed. It took me about half an hour once to get into the LSU building because I had no idea how to get in.
Yeah.
But it's underway, isn't it? And I think they're on track.
I'd be interested to see what it's going to look like eventually.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to have this whole new building with a leaky roof, and it's going to be amazing. So, like I say, Twitter has been amazing. We just had a lovely tweet from Natalie, who has said, "Get me on LCR to talk enterprise." Natalie, we would love to, but I am afraid of you.
Yeah.
So. So maybe next time. But you know, it's been a really wonderful Soapbox. It's lovely to be back at it, seeing the buzz around the union, and I'm very excited to see what the building is going to look like once it opens back up. Not sure about you, Niall.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting back into Fusion.
I bet you are.
With a new floor for that, for all the VKs going around.
Of course. I mean, that's why we had to go around the building today. The new floor being poured today. It's wonderful times of having to broadcast from a building site.
Yeah.
Just luckily, we didn't have a fire alarm go off just yet, so that was a risk. Anyway, so I've been Lucy Lewis.
I've been Niall Salmon.
So today we have heard from Jodie Evans, Hettie Bawden. That's for Action and RAG, respectively. Then we had Seth Johnson from Societies, and Nathan Chan and Cameron Glenwright both running for Enterprise Chair. Tomorrow we have the executive officers. So that is Gabo Vieira for President and Freya Mason also for President. Vice President, Leon Dixon and Charlotte Stile. Education EO, Eleanor Bishop and Thomas Young. And Welfare and Diversity EO, Alex Marlowe versus Jean Cameron. And Sport EO, Rachel Caverhill. So those are all tomorrow. It's going to be a very exciting,
I'm really
very
looking forward to it tomorrow.
Busy day tomorrow. Most of those contested. The Sport is the only one that's not contested, notwithstanding Ron. So I feel like we're going to have a lot to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, today was just feels like the warm-up to these contested roles. I'm really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We will be back here tomorrow now, me and you giving a bit of an outside perspective, a bit more casual look at what we think about the candidates. We'll be back to spill the tea tomorrow afternoon to talk all the EO roles. But for now, I'm going to leave you all with some highlights from the interviews that LCR did with all the candidates. So enjoy these, and we will see you tomorrow.
Alex Marlowe, and I'm running to be your next Wealth and Diversity Executive Officer.
I'm Cameron, and I'm running to be the Enterprise Chair.
Hi, I'm Charlotte, and I'm running for Vice President in the Exec elections.
I am Elle, and I'm going for Education Executive.
Hi, I'm Freya, and I'm running for LSU President this year.
My name is Gabriel Ortiz Vieira, but you can call me Gabo, and I'm running for LSU president.
Hi everyone, I'm Hettie and I'm running to be your next RAG chair.
Hi, my name is Jean Cameron and I'm running for Welfare and Diversity Executive Officer.
Hi, I'm Jodie and I'm rerunning to be Action Chair.
I'm Leon Dixon and I'm running for the position of Vice President.
So I'm Nathan and I'm running for the Enterprise Chair.
Hello, I'm Rachel Caverhill and I'm running to be Sport Executive Officer.
Hi, I'm Seth and I'm running for Society's Chair this year.
So, hello, my name is Thomas Young and I'm running to be your next Education Executive Officer.
Exec Elections 2021 on LCR.
What is the worst thing you've ever done?
Well, I've certainly ran in a field of wheat. How I treated my sister as a child?
I think when I was 5, I pushed my sister in a bath once.
So my sister was choking on some food and I didn't get her water.
I don't know, bought AirPods.
Well, I have this tiny little, toy baby hand thing that I got in an art gallery once, and I take it on a lot of nights out.
When I was 18, I peed off a bridge in Prague.
I hit my mum square in the head and gave her a concussion.
Oh my god!
And I had to eat custard with baked beans, marshmallows, and I think there was some pasta of some sort in there, and I had to eat an entire bowl of it.
Steal my friend's food.
When I was younger, I broke a window at our house and I blamed it on my dog.
And I convinced him that he had broken it. And it was only a couple of years ago that I actually came out and said it was me.
Basically came back and threw up completely in my sink.
Probably lived in Telford for 4 years.
Tell me something most people don't know about you.
Most people don't know I'm part of the LGBTQ+ community.
I came to university as an athlete.
My dad was born in Canada, there we go.
I'm a magician.
I used to do ballroom and Latin dancing.
I was born in Australia and I'm half Kiwi as well.
I am a drama graduate from Loughborough University.
I'm a bit of a shopping addict, so I now own 111 headbands.
I'm a quarter Mexican.
I love anime, but I used to not tell anyone I love anime.
Be that I grew up in Ghana.
My optician said I'm going to be blind by the time I'm 40.
That Ariana Grande is one of my guilty pleasures.
Most people probably don't know that I only got into RAG because I went on an action project.
Who's your favourite Viner, YouTuber, TikToker? Who's your favourite internet person?
I'm a fan of, just in general, audio channels, photography channels, all that sort of thing.
I just really like frogs.
Viner plus YouTuber, David Dobrik.
I like Grey Day Under It.
And goes baby puppy hazelnut and cooks it, honestly, the most amazing, Michelin star meals.
Maddie Bullerman.
There's this very odd TikToker called, Baby Rex or, Baby Kitten T-Rex or something like that.
I don't know. I don't really watch anything like that.
I'm gonna go really basic. I'm gonna say PewDiePie.
There's one person that I follow on Instagram who's a gymnast from Australia.
There's this one guy called Casey Frey.
A woman called the Slumflower.
Candice, you ready? Martina, you ready? Alright, come on girls, just hit the road.
I didn't get sleep because of y'all. You're never gonna sleep because of me.
What new thing did you pick up during lockdown?
I never really used Skype or Zoom or anything before, so...
I started roller skating.
Ooh, cooking.
Yoga.
Card tricks.
I started painting by numbers.
Ooh, crocheting.
Confidence. A reduced attention span.
I started doing voiceover sort of thing.
I started a small business.
I started doing embroidery.
There was a month where I started running 5Ks every day.
Probably actually doing my coursework on time.
If you could change one thing about LSU right now, you say it and it would change, what would you change?
I think the culture right now.
I would name Nathan Chan as a VIP, so he'd get instant access to anything.
Personally, I think the media exec position deserves more recognition.
We'd have our own alpaca farm.
How far it is from where I am staying?
It would be that students were represented.
Fix sums, which fix the website.
I think I'd change the website. Meaningfully listen to students.
Have more options for meal deals. The building itself make it 10 times bigger to have way more rooms when I go out.
I'd like all the sections and societies and everyone to kind of collaborate a bit more.
Shifting priorities when it comes to, what we want to sort of achieve and put out as an organisation.
I would push for even more inclusivity with and integration with them and the rest of the university community, I think.
Where would you put yourself on a D&D alignment chart?
Probably more towards neutral good.
I would say neutral good.
So I've literally just learned what this is, and I think I said the neutral good one.
Probably neutral good is what I'd say.
I'd say I'd probably neutral good.
I would say that I am neutral good.
I said neutral good.
The good neutral one, I think. I think I'd probably do true neutral. I think that's it.
Chaotic lawful.
I think I would place myself in the chaotic good square.
I would say chaotic neutral.
I would say chaotic good.
Lawful evil.
What is your go-to order from the daily grind?
I don't think I've ever ordered. I always go to the bubble tea place.
I have not been.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my god.
Don't go to the daily grind.
Ooh.
I know. Terrible.
Flat white.
I really like lattes, so maybe a caramel latte.
Iced coffee would have to be my absolute favourite thing to have in the summer.
Well, I don't drink coffee, but I'll definitely say the hot chocolate is one of my favorite drinks.
Hot chocolate. Anything with hot chocolate involved.
I mean, it's a hot chocolate.
It's going to be a hot chocolate purely because I don't drink coffee.
So I just get a regular mocha. I'm a little bit boring.
A vanilla latte, just let's be standard.
Be a mozzarella pesto and tomato panini.
Black coffee, no sugar, no milk. Pure, unadulterated caffeine.
If you could do your uni experience over again, what would you do differently?
There's so much more to do. Like, I would love to take up a new hobby, like sailing or something.
I might have thrown myself a bit more into my hall.
I mean, I think I got involved in a lot of stuff, but I feel like I'd try and do sort of more society stuff.
I think I would have thrown myself in a little bit quicker. I think I waited a bit.
I would go out more.
I think for me, being only second year, I would appreciate my first year just a little bit more.
I'd try and get involved with even more stuff.
I didn't really get involved in like LSU activities until February of my first year. I would maybe say start sooner.
Get more involved with sports, maybe play a bit more sports, get a bit more active, do a bit more exercise.
I think I'd take on less responsibilities in my second year.
I would get involved with action more and sooner.
I mean, just go out all the time.
I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I don't regret my uni experience.
So I've been here since 2016. If I have to do that over, that's a decade.
Voting in the exec elections opens at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, the 11th of May, and closes at 4 p.m. on Friday, the 14th of May. For more information, see lsu.co.uk/exec elections.
Exec Elections 2021 on LCR.